Chapter 251, Searching. It was said that this evening, when the Flaming Horns tribe stayed there, it was the quietest night for the Fang tribe. They did not hear any sounds of the various night animals in a wide area, or the emergency whistles from the patrolling warriors. Nothing strange happened in the tribe, and they didn't even meet those strange insects that they had been alert against. The next day was sunny. After getting up early, the first thing every house did was count the number of their livestock. "How's the livestock?" "All are here," a woman from the Fang tribe said happily to her husband after counting her livestock. The neighbors talked with each other to see who was the unfortunate one to lose livestock this time. However, they had talked for the whole morning and noticed that no livestock was lost. A man said he lost a goat, but it turned out that he just counted it wrong. He recounted it several times to make sure. This was the first time that none of their livestock were lost in a while. Listening to the reports based on the information collected by his subordinates, Yeeb nodded and said, "It seems that it was the insects that robbed the livestock. Or maybe they just ran away scared last night." Someone whispered. The howl of the wolf last night was heard by those sleeping at home and also the patrols on the grasslands. The patrolling warriors even witnessed the beasts running away after hearing the howl. Instantly, the people of the Fang tribe thought that the arrival of Flaming Horns tribe was beneficial for them. There was such a wolf guarding them and keeping those livestock thieves away. The Flaming Horns tribe stayed at the Fang tribe for 2 days. They mainly wanted to take care of those wanderers. The badly injured people were finally safe thanks to the 2-day treatment. Shashwan seized this chance to take a few warriors to the mountain to get some wood so that they could make a simple carriage. There were few materials and most of the craftsmen were not here. Therefore, Shashwan made it almost all on his own. The carriage was not as big as those they had made for the return to the old land. It didn't have a roof, but the carriage had supports with a straw mat on top, woven by a wanderer, to shade the people on the carriage from the sun. The wood was not good nor tough. He was reluctant to make the carriage with it. He did not have Caesar pull the carriage. Shashwan chose 2 adult horses for the job. He let those wounded people who had difficulty walking get on the carriage. The wanderers were in a good mood. After the 2-day rest, they looked much more vigorous. Accompanied with the totem warriors of the Flaming Horns tribe, they wore a relaxed and happy face. When Anai and his family left, Gwaur gave him a pony. Duoya and the other children of the same age who knew them, although they seldom stayed together, saw Anai off. "When we meet next time, we will all be totem warriors, right?" Gwaur said and looked at those leaving. "Ah, where is Anai's tribe?" "If we go out later, we'll visit him," said one of the children. Saying so, he fixed his eyes on Caesar. When it came to this, Gwaur hesitated. "My father said they were in the ferocious Beast Mountain Forest." The other children. Dear reader, our website is running thanks to our ads. Please consider supporting us and the translators by disabling your ad blocker. Currently, 55% of our readers have turned their ad block on. Alternatively, if you don't like ads, you could also subscribe for only $3 for 30 days. With the subscription you will enjoy an ad-free experience, and also have access to all the VIP chapters. Even though it was far away from them, they knew what the ferocious Beast Mountain Forest was. Saying goodbye to the patrol team of the Fang tribe, the Flaming Horns tribe left with the wanderers. They did not continue in the grasslands. Although they had a strong curiosity and wanted to see the other tribes on the grasslands, their task was more important. This time their important task was to pick up the wanderers, rather than wander about. They knew they had to wait for another chance later to explore here. Leaving the tribe, and almost having left the grassland, Shashwan still did not see Chaka. Looking at the sky, Shashwan wondered why Chaka hadn't come back. When they had been in the Fang tribe 2 days ago, Chaka went out for fun alone and did not follow them into the Fang tribe. Shashwan did not mind it, and only told him not to go to the other tribes to take their livestock, otherwise, he would be attacked. Shashwan hadn't worried about it, but he hadn't seen Chaka for 2 days now. Chaka always came back and reported to him every day, but this time he didn't. He just disappeared. They all intended to leave, but he still hadn't appeared yet. Did he go to the mountain to see the tribal war and forgot to come back? Fortunately, before they walked out of the grasslands, Chaka finally came back. Chaka was in a sorry state, with a lot of wounds and lost a lot of feathers. But he was fortunate enough that he could fly back and was still alive. Shashwan carefully looked at Chaka's wounds. Some were caused by claws, and some were caused from being becked, and some feathers were pulled. However, although he was injured, he seemed to be very excited. "Who did you fight with?" Lang asked. "He probably fought with a bird of his size and perhaps of the same race." Shashwan took a feather with blood from his claw, which was a trophy. When Chaka flew back, his claw was still holding it. Obviously, the blood on the feather was not his blood. The several feathers held by Chaka's claw had almost the same size and color as his feathers. If Shashwan was not familiar with Chaka, he may even mistakenly think that they were all pulled off from Chaka. "You look so joyful. Did you win?" Langaw said praisingly. Zhao Chaka replied and proudly flapped his wings. Unlike Caesar's intimacy with the Flaming Horns tribe, Chaka had always been alienated from the others, not to mention the fact that there were many strangers in this team. After Shashwan gave him the medicine, he flew back to the sky and followed the team. He did not fly away this time. The feathers were his loot, so Shashwan helped him keep them. After they returned to the tribe, he would have Oldk store them. When Chaka returned with trophies, Oldk always kept some of them. The wanderers were very curious about the two ferocious beasts in the team, but they did not dare to come close to Caesar, and Chaka in the sky was too far away from them. They could only look up at him. They did not expect that the Flaming Horns tribe would even have ferocious beasts. A tribe with ferocious beasts should be a strong tribe, right? After leaving the grasslands, the team did not go back immediately, but went to another place. In that place, the leaders responsible for gathering, like Copw, had agreed to meet when they would come out of the grasslands. The grasslands were large and there was not only one way out, and the shortest route for Copw was not necessarily the shortest route for the people living in other places on the grasslands. Therefore they all set out separately. "There's a market there and a lot of travelers will pass by, but we didn't agree to meet in a place located in the market. Instead, on a mountain. It is close to the market. Use this whistle to make contact." Copw told their arrangement to my dear reader. Our website is running thanks to our ads. Please consider supporting us and the translators by disabling your ad blocker. Currently, 55% of our readers have turned their ad block on. Alternatively, if you don't like ads, you could also subscribe for only $3 for 30 days. With the subscription you will enjoy an ad-free experience, and also have access to all the VIP chapters. In order to return to the old land and the tribe, they had made great efforts. Wanderers had always been a vulnerable group. Wherever they were the weak. Even when they just collected some information, some of them were killed. Getting along for 2 days, Mai knew a little about Copw. He was smart and calm, no wonder old he and the others always turned to him. Without Copw, the wanderers in this side of the grasslands may not have been able to come here safely. Although there were many untrustworthy people among the wanderers, most of them were loyal for they came so far. Otherwise, they would not take such a big risk, even considering that they heard that the tribe was in the ferocious beast mountain forests. They arrived at the market Copw spoke about after they left the grasslands and then walked for another day. Because they moved with wanderers and livestock, they slowed down a lot. If the totem warriors traveled alone, they could be there in half a day, but it was different when they went with the wanderers. The market was popular among many travelers who went through the grasslands, and many of the travelers rested there before entering or leaving the grassland. Copw did not know where the other wanderers were. He had never left the grasslands. Everything he knew was by exchanging some food for info and asking several team leaders. When he arrived there, he was still confused. Even if he could refer to a map, it would be difficult to locate himself accurately, not to mention the fact that they did not have a map at the time. Copw kept his appointment and blew the wooden whistle, but there was no response. "Haven't they arrived here yet?" someone asked. "No, We are late a few days because of the tribal war and they are closer to this place than us. Did they get pulled into a tribal war? Even if some did, not every group would be the case. A war doesn't break out so often on the grasslands. Someone retorted, even if not all the teams arrived here, one or two should have arrived. However, no matter how Copw whistled, there was still no response. Some of the travelers who went past them looked at them with curiosity. If the warriors of the Flaming Horns tribe didn't look powerful and weren't accompanied by Caesar, those travelers who were not afraid of them may even attack them. Not receiving any response from them, Copw became anxious and Mai frowned. Shashwan looked at the sky. Chaka did not give him any messages, which meant there were no wanderers in the surrounding area. There are no wanderers around. We first find a place for them to rest and then continue to search. Shashwan told Mai. With so many wanderers and livestock, it was not easy to walk around. Searching around the mountain, Shashwan and Mai decided to settle the wanderers and the livestock they had bought there. Then Shashwan went with Copw and more than 20 warriors to continue to look for more wanderers. The remaining half of the warriors and Caesar were left behind to protect the wanderers. They took Copw to look for the wanderers around there. They also looked for them in groups, but they still did not see any wanderers. Copw's whistle was different from Shashwan's and the sound was not the same. Mai worried that they heard the whistle, but as it was not the same as that of Copw, they would not respond. Therefore, he had to bring Copw wherever they went. They searched the mountains near the market, but they did not find any wanderers. Shashwan advised to ask for some information in the market. After all, there were so many wanderers. Though they covered their tracks, they would be seen. In that case, they could get some information about them. Mai agreed with Shashwan's idea. Anyway, there was no other better way, so they decided to do as Shashwan said. Chapter 252, Bored People. They came to the market. There were travelers walking scattered. Some of them were probably from the tribes on the grasslands and lived close from here. They sold things at fixed stalls. They gathered with the members of their tribe as they were being bullied. The markets in the Ming tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe were orderly because they were under the control of at least two tribes. That was why others did not dare to cause trouble. If anybody caused trouble, those two tribes would not let them go. It was different here, for there were often fights among large groups. When Shashwan got there, a fight had just ended, which was caused by two traveling teams. Some warriors of both teams got injured or were killed. A lot of bloodstains were still left on the battlefield. Some people were cleaning up the corpses, while others who had seen such a scene before just stepped on the ground covered by blood and bodies calmly. In this place, everything depended on your strength. They obeyed the most primal law. If you didn't have strength, you would be slaughtered, and no one would care about it. Fortunately, compared with the markets in the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe, this was not part of the central region. Only a few of those travelers were from the tribes in the central region. This place was close to the grasslands, so most were warriors from the tribes on the grasslands. There were many people from nearby tribes that came here to trade. People sold at stalls here. Some people sold cows, goats and other livestock, and others did as the Pu tribe, who bought things from other places and sold them here again. Most of the things sold in the market were livestock, food, tools, weapons and herbs. In general, the variety was no less than the market of the two tribes, and the market here was quite lively. After all, it was the only place where people could trade. Tall and strong warriors were talking loudly. Some people directly fought with others because they did not finish the transaction. Such things could happen at any time. Shashwan inquired someone about the market. It was said that no wanderer groups had come here, which made Mai a little disappointed. It seemed to be not easy to find the wanderers. Copw did not give up. Even in the market, he whistled ever so often, hoping that someone could hear the whistle in the market. Otherwise, how would they find the other wanderers in such a big place? Maybe the other people were not as fortunate and they got in deep trouble because they didn't meet the warriors sent by the Flaming Horns tribe. Thinking about something, Copw followed behind Mai absent-minded. As they walked all the way along the market, they did not find any wanderers and intended to leave. However, They heard a whistle when they passed the hill closest to the market. It was the same as Kuntu's whistle. "They are here." Kuntu's eyes flashed and looked around. It was difficult for him to determine the location in a short time. Mai's hearing was better. They immediately found the location. "Over there. Go, go." There was a clue at last. Mai was very happy, but was also worried, because the mountain was a place where the travelers were resting. A large number of people stayed there and the situation was complicated because of the power struggle. They were totem warriors. For the wanderers, that was really not a good place. Shashwan had encountered such a mountain in the market of the Meng tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe. He followed the traveling team of the Pu tribe and stayed in similar caves, and he witnessed a fight. All depended on strength if you wanted to stay in a cave. Because of this, he wondered why Kuntu said the wanderers would go there. Kuntu blew the whistle twice and stopped. He blew it again, but there was no response. "Why aren't they blowing?" Langa was puzzled. "Maybe something bad happened," Shashwan said. As a place used to rest, the mountain was quite hollowed out. There were several entrances and exits, and the most important one directly divided the arched mountain. If you looked down from above, this mountain where travelers rested looked like an arch of nearly 300 degrees. Many of the holes in the mountain were manually dug. Such holes could be seen everywhere. When Shashwan hurried to the mountain, there were 10 wanderers standing at a place on the arched mountain. Several of them were injured and hadn't wiped the blood off, and in the front, a traveling team surrounded them. Other people were watching this place as if they were watching a movie. No one intervened in this situation. Such an incident actually gave them some entertainment. They stood in the holes where their teams stayed, looking at what was happening there. Among the 10 people, the leader was called Kai. He was holding a wooden whistle in his hand. But it was not he who whistled, rather a young man beside him. But before he could blow the whistle again, Kai took it. He naturally knew his companions were nearby, but he did not want to let them come here. They were wanderers, and this place was like a big mouth, and those totem warriors were the sharp teeth in the big mouth. If a wanderer came in, he would get badly injured and even die. They could sacrifice their lives, but others should not get involved in it. In front of Kai, the traveling team watched them jokingly as if they were the prey in the cage. "Why don't you continue to blow it? Did your companions come here? Go on and blow it. Tell them to come here. I want to see what your companions are like." A man of the traveling team said. "Yeah, keep blowing. We welcome all of you." "Are there any women?" Someone beside him echoed. Hearing those words, Kai and a few people looked even worse. But now they could not escape. Kai looked to the people in another hole not far away from them. He knew many of them, but none of them stood up and helped them. As everyone looked at Kai, a totem warrior went into a hole above them with a clay jar full of water. He walked along while talking with the other companions in the hole. "These wanderers are bold. Only 10 in a group dare to come here." He saw the scene over there when he went out to get some water. "Wanderers? Why did the wanderers come here? Even 100 coming here will die." Someone in the hole asked. "Who knows?" The man holding the clay jar said indifferently. "If you want to know, you can go out to watch. They haven't started fighting yet." "Well, where is the fun? If 2 traveling teams fight, I will be interested. But a battle against wanderers? Not interested." The man distorted his mouth, leaned against the wall and looked to a person coming from within the cave. "Gula, do you know what happened to Shandao? Did he really encounter another eagle?" The people coming did not answer and just sighed. In the hole, a wounded eagle was resting there. There were many scratches on its body and some parts were bald, for the feathers were forcibly pulled off its body. It was still bleeding. It was feeling better now after getting some medicine. Compared to Chaka, this eagle called Shandao, which was as big as Chaka, was injured more seriously. Gula took the water bottle and drank, recalling the scene he saw this morning. He did not expect that Shandao would encounter an enemy in the air here. Because of the size and strength of Shandao, he could hunt on the other birds. It was not very likely for him to meet an equal, so they did not worry about him. However, they were shocked when they saw Shandao come back like that. At that time, Shandao's feathers were stained with blood and some feathers were in a mess. He couldn't fly stably. When he flew back, he fell on the ground straight away. crying from pain. After he got some medicine, he became quiet and fell into a sleep. If he was awake, he would have tried to fly out. What happened? Why was he hurt so badly? Gula did not know. Other people were resting in the hole. 2 teenagers, among them, felt bored and left the hole to see what was going on over there. They are the members of the Deshan tribe. They can only bully the weak. One of them saw the traveling team over there and spoke disdainingly. Kai was thinking of how to deal with the current situation when he heard the whistle coming from outside once again. Seemingly afraid that they could not hear it, the man tried his hardest to blow as they approached. Kai was anxious. Why did they come here? The people of the Deshan tribe wore a sardonic smile and looked at the depressed Kai. The leader said, "It seems that your companions are coming here. You can either take them with you, or stay here with your companions." Kai's facial muscle was twitching because of excessive anger and anxiety. He turned to look at the entrance of the mountain and prayed, "Don't come in, please." Besides Kai, others were curiously looking at the entrance at the bottom of the mountain, where the whistle came from. Many people thought the wanderers were bold. Here is the site of totem warriors, and they still came in. Fools, right? Above, 2 young warriors were lying on the path in front of the hole, and stretching their necks to look down. What did the bold men look like? Soon, they saw an ordinary dark man running in, and in his mouth there was a wooden whistle. "Look, who is next to him?" Suddenly, the people in the mountain became confused. More than 20 people came in with the man blowing the whistle, and they didn't look like wanderers. Mai glanced around and fixed its eyes on Kai. He walked a few steps quickly and did not wait for Kuntu to make his way up the mountain on his own. He seized Kutu's animal skin coat and then bent his legs to jump. It was common for the people of the Flaming Horns tribe to climb mountains. They were good at climbing even the steep mountains. They climbed mountains every time when they went hunting. For them, the mountain where these travelers rested was very easy even without walking on the path. They climbed the mountain like apes climbing trees, and more than 20 people reached the place where Kai and the Deshan tribe were. Sure enough, they are totem warriors. Only totem warriors can climb the mountain so easily. It is as easy as climbing a tree for them. But why are those totem warriors staying with the wanderers? Are they helping the wanderers? The people in the mountain had a heated discussion. Chapter 253, One Strike. More than 20 people almost vertically climbed up from the bottom of the mountain. They spent very little time, and all of them stood in front of the Deshan tribe. The people who saw this could not help but wonder which tribe these people were from. Seeing Kuntu being easily brought up, Kai got confused at once. He knew Kuntu, but he had never seen the others. However, he felt that the more than 20 people were familiar, and he guessed who they were. His heart suddenly beat fast and he seemed to forget to breathe. Kai was silent and Kuntu came over and asked him, "What happened?" Thinking of Mai next to them, Kuntu introduced them to him at once. "They came from the tribe to pick us up." Mai is a senior totem warrior. Uncle Wei is also a senior totem warrior. Wei was a vice captain of the advance team led by Ta, and also one of the few members sent here in this team. Ao knew Shashwan would go pick up the wanderers and also come back with livestock, so he asked Wei to follow him. Wei's status was higher than Mai, but most of the members in this team were the members of the team led by Mai. Wei did not want to seize power. The chief had said that he was only responsible for assistance this time. Hearing there were 2 senior totem warriors, Kai and the others felt excited and confident at once. The tribe could support them. Kai was too excited to say anything, so the young man next to him, after getting to know the identity of Mai, told the whole story briefly without delay. When Kai brought the people to the appointed place, they found that there were also many travelers. To avoid conflict with those traveling teams, they intended to stay away from them, but unexpectedly, before they could leave they were stopped by 8 people of the Deshan tribe who targeted a few young women in their group. They wanted to get the women, but Kai did not let them do so. Fortunately, all 8 of them were junior totem warriors. Kai was in a large group and they had gained some strength because of the relighting of the fire seed in the old land. They worked together to drive the 8 people away, but some people in the group became seriously injured and 2 were killed on the spot. Kai led the team to a place far from the market and he himself brought 10 people out to look for herbs to treat the injured. Otherwise, the seriously injured would die in a few days. While they were looking for herbs, Kai met people of another tribe. Before he left the grasslands, he had depended on the tribe. He was in the same situation as old he. Some in this team also knew about Kai and allowed them to take herbs from the hole where they were staying. However, when they came to this mountain, they found that the 8 people who had caused them trouble were members of the Decisive tribe, and the hole where they were staying was right next to them. They were stopped. The people of the Decisive tribe wanted to make Kai go back to bring those few young women here, otherwise they would not let them go and kill all of them. That's it. Just now they heard the whistle and they said that no matter how many people come here, they will kill them all. The young wanderer next to Kai began to complain about them. The faces of the people of the Decisive tribe thought, shit, when did we say we would kill all who came here? Although we thought so, we did not directly say so. Getting to know the reason, Mai suddenly became angry and he showed his aggression and his ferocity, like a fierce beast ready to hunt prey, with a pair of sharp eyes staring at the Decisive tribe. Shashwan glanced at this team of the Decisive tribe. He saw a few familiar people, but these people may not remember him. When he had been in the Longboat tribe, Shashwan had met this team, and had also slaughtered a few of them. One can't avoid one's enemies. The people around there who carelessly watched them were suddenly startled, for it would be a battle among totem warriors rather than between wanderers and totem warriors. They just did not know which tribe these people came from. Seeing this group of people, the people of the Decisive tribe were stunned and wondered why they were not wanderers. Why were there suddenly so many totem warriors, and 2 of them were even senior totem warriors? Leader. The people of the Decisive tribe looked to the leader of the team and asked what to do next. The leader of the Decisive tribe team changed his facial expression and he fixed his eyes on Mai and Wei for a long time. He held the stone sword tightly and said, well, unexpectedly there is a tribe. Which tribe are you from? Mai moved a step forward. Under the feet there was a stone as big as a fist. He did not avoid it but directly stepped on it. He said in a low voice, the Flaming Horns tribe. As he finished his words, a loud sound was issued from below Mai's feet. The stone was crushed. Even the corridor outside the cave was shaking. It also shocked the crowd around there. The Flaming Horns tribe? Never heard of it. Some people felt it was familiar, but they could not say more about it. In short, in everybody's eyes, if they could not say anything about it, it must be a small tribe and they didn't need to care about it. Seeing Mai did not plan to retreat, the leader of the Decisive tribe was angry. There are 2 senior totem warriors in their team, so what? We have 3. Besides, there are so many people in our team. More than 100 people should not be afraid of only 20 enemies. So you won't give them to us? One of his opponents asked. Anyone who bullies the members of my tribe. Mai looked straight at him, his sharp eyes flashed, and said, will die. So arrogant? This sentence of Mai shocked the people around there. The Flaming Horns tribe was really aggressive and almost looked down on everyone. The faces of the people of the Decisive tribe were angry. Mai's words told what the people of his tribe thought. From the river, they had traveled a long way to return to the old land. Along the way, they learned a lot. They had to keep the tribe's dignity, and in the face of the provocation, they could not retreat. The strength in their bones did not allow them to surrender their people to another tribe. The Decisive tribe? So what? So many people? Beat them. In the face of the aggressive 20 members of the Flaming Horns tribe, the leader of the Decisive tribe felt some unrest. Among them, no one intended to retreat and their eyes were firm. The more than 20 people shared the same goal. Like an erect sword with fierce flames, they were ready to fight. It was really tricky. We'd better test them. The leader of the Decisive tribe made a gesture with his hand on his back. A warrior on the edge suddenly moved forward a few steps, not facing Mai and Wei, but stepped towards Kai. He said, I bully you, so what? Then, the man took out a stone sword the length of a man's arm from his waist. In the sun, the blade had a luster like twilight, as if the night was coming. With the sudden emergence of totem power, The opponent's body showed the totem patterns. He thrust forward with a jump and the tip of his sword targeted Kai Yi, behind Shashwan. The next moment it would be easy for him to chop off the head of Kai Yi. Seeing the other suddenly shoot towards himself, the blade locking on him, Kai Yi's scalp felt a numbness. He could not help but take a step back, but Shashwan, who stood in front of him, did not back down. When he rushed forward to stab him, Shashwan suddenly swung his arm. The grey sword shadow and his anger made the ordinary-looking sword feel frightening. Faster than him, Shashwan's blade swept from front to back and went through his body without any delay. The blood splashed as his body was pierced. This sword did not bring the dusk, but the permanent night. Stained with blood, the sword was scary. Puff! The man was cut in half, and judging from his eyes, he was at a loss. The attack lost its supporting force and the blade was useless. One part of his body fell to the ground, and blew up dust, while the other flew out of the hole and fell down the mountain. Shashwan did not look back to see the falling part, but to the other people of the Descent tribe. He repeated Mai's words, as a reply to the opponent. Whoever bullies my tribe will die. It was clear that his tone was not as firm as Mai, but it still made the listeners feel scared. The onlookers could not help but shiver. In front of the people of the Descent tribe, this brat actually took actions so decisively. Straightforwardly cut him in half. The people of the Flaming Horns tribe really feared and worried about nothing. People re-evaluated the people of the Flaming Horns tribe. The man was an intermediate totem warrior of the Descent tribe, not a junior one. He did not even have time to avoid his attack and he was directly cut. If I was attacked by him, would I be able to dodge? Many people thought about it in their hearts, but found that they were not confident enough to dodge. He cut in such a quick and fast way, which was very terrifying. The people of the Descent tribe stared at the half on the ground and glanced at Shashwan staring straight at them. Many people subconsciously stepped backwards. If they had not been stopped by those behind them, they would probably have left the battle circle. Above, two young men who had seen that kept raising their eyebrows. Oh my god, actually just one strike. Nothing special. Wanderers are weak and it is normal that they can be killed by a single strike. Someone inside the hole heard what he said and spoke. Not a wanderer, a member of the Descent tribe, and he was killed by one strike. What? The people inside the hole were surprised. Is he really just an intermediate totem warrior? Is he the third senior totem warrior in the team? The other young man said, no. He isn't a senior, but he is very strong. In addition, he is so young. How could he be a senior totem warrior? He is not a member of a big tribe in the central region. Hearing the discussion of the two young men outside the hole, people who were resting in the hole could not stay calm. Just now they had felt a hint of shock. They guessed that the fight escalated below, but they didn't know exactly what happened. Just at that moment, the atmosphere seemed to be tense in the mountain. And although it was less tense now, it was still not the same as before. I want to know what kind of people they are, who surprised you so much. Gula came out, looking down to the hole where the Descent tribe stayed. Chapter 254, Fight starts. Currently, in the mountain where travelers rest, most of the people who were active outside their holes paid attention to what happened in front of the hole of the Descent tribe. They were curious about the warriors who suddenly appeared, and especially Shashwan, who had just killed the man with a single strike. Hearing the Flaming Horns tribe, the people discussed with each other, but they could not draw a conclusion, so they asked people of the other tribes around them. They asked where the tribe came from, and why these people suddenly appeared here in such an aggressive manner. The 20-plus totem warriors of the Flaming Horns tribe ignored the other people in the mountain and only paid attention to the travelers of the Descent tribe. They were ready to launch an attack. Kai Yi looked at Shashwan's back in a daze and then looked to the half-body bleeding at his feet. He finally glanced at Kuntu and asked what to do the next. He wondered whether they should fight against the Descent tribe with these warriors or they should stay away. He was not afraid of death, for he thought it was an honor to fight with these totem warriors. Even if he was dead, others would take care of the wanderers following him and take them back to the tribe. Kuntu did not know what to do. Mai was confronting a senior totem warrior and Shashwan was closest to him. Therefore, Kuntu could not help but look to Shashwan. Noticing Kuntu looking at him, Shashwan looked sideways to the aisle outside the hole. He raised his chin. There were some protruding stones in the shape of stairs, which were the steps for people to go up and down the mountain. Even those who had not awakened could walk on those prominent stones. We should stay away, Kuntu understood. Once the totem warriors fought, the outsiders may be accidentally hurt. Although they were a bit stronger than before, they were still wanderers. Compared to Shashwan, who had just killed a man with one strike, they were really weak. Forget it. They should leave here. Kuntu beckoned Kai and the others to go down the mountain with them. The interaction between Shashwan and Kuntu was witnessed by the people of the Descent tribe. They saw Kuntu and the others leave, but some people still wanted to stop them. Noticing being stared at, they looked over and saw the eyes of Shashwan. The several warriors of the Descent tribe gulped and moved back before they could even begin to move forward. None of the people of the Descent tribe stopped them, and the onlookers did not want to get involved and gave them the way to go down the mountain. Without the company of Shashwan and Kuntu and his people would not be treated well. People showed an obviously different attitude to wanderers. When Kai left, he looked to the hole next to the Descent tribe. In the traveling teams of the tribes on the grasslands that were resting there, he had known some of them for more than a decade. He thought that they had a good relationship, but these people did not stop the Descent tribe or say something for them. Looking at the eyes of Kai, they unconsciously looked away. In fact, if the people of the Descent tribe hadn't caused trouble deliberately, they would have given some herbs to Kai. But Kai offended the tribe, so they would not intervene in it. No one would offend a totem warrior of a tribe for a wanderer. After glancing at them, Kai and Kuntu took the people down the steps swiftly. He did not blame them, but he would not have a close relationship with them. When Kai went down the mountain, in the Descent tribe, a man came out of the hole. He was the third senior totem warrior in this traveling team of the Descent tribe. After he came out of the hole, the Descent tribe now had 3 totem warriors. What happened? The man walking out of the hole carried a stone stick thicker than a thigh in his hand. The stone looked good. It should be at least a superior stone. The handle of the stone stick was thin, so a hand could hold it. Probably because it was often used, there were some dents caused by fingers on the handle. No one knew how many people and animals had been killed by this stone stick. There was much dry blood left, and perhaps he deliberately kept the blood on it to deter others. The stone tools stained with blood could leave a deeper impression than the bare ones. The man coming out of the hole listened to a warrior next to him, who said a few words, laughed, put the stone stick vertically on the ground, and laughed. However, the people of the Descent tribe who were familiar with him felt scared. The more he laughed, the crueler he was. While laughing, the man supporting the stone stick looked instantly cruel. His face became gloomy and distorted. After laughing, with sinister eyes he glanced around. He did not fix his eyes on the half-body on the ground, but looked to Shashwan. Courting death. What Huma said is right, said he, leader of the Descent tribe team, who was confronting Mai. They really shouldn't feel scared just because the brat killed a man with one strike and that they had 2 senior totem warriors. He stared at those wanderers going down the mountain and looked straight at Mai, opposite him. 2 senior totem warriors, so what? More than 20 aggressive people, so what? We have 3 senior totem warriors, and a lot of intermediate totem warriors, and many junior totem warriors. If we really launch a group attack, they cannot defeat us. Since you provoked us, we will kill you. To survive in this world, one must have strength and be threatening to deter others. Why could the Descent tribe here easily occupy a big hole on the mountainside and no other tribe dared to challenge it? It was because of their fearsome strength. Once a provoker appeared, they would mercilessly slaughter him. That was why no one came up with the idea of resisting or provoking it. Relying on the killing, they became infamous. So many feared them. Like the Wanshi tribe living in ferocious Beast Mountain forest, people trembled on hearing its name. Looking at his changing facial expression, Mai understood his choice. Without saying anything, they activated their totem power instantly, and the totem patterns appeared on his face, neck, and arms. At this moment, The stone sword in his hand had become one with Mai's body. A violent force erupted from his body and a sound was issued by the friction with the air. The sound was like a howl of a forest animal. Mai, like a swift predator, attacked the prey swiftly. His stone sword was like a huge beast's claw targeting the prey in the forest. He chopped straight at the head of the leader of the traveling team of the Descent tribe. When Mai moved, the other people of the Flaming Horns tribe attacked almost at the same time that battle started. They did not need to make other preparations and began to fight, which was the tacit understanding they gained when they went to the forest for hunting. They did not need to say a word and move together if necessary. In the forest, one little sound would make the prey become alert. If they had shouted before acting, the hunting team would have already starved to death. More than 20 people, at almost the same time, mobilized the totem power inside the body, and at this moment they became even more intimidating. Like a steep mountain, it rose and overwhelmed the Descent tribe. They completely overshadowed the people of the Descent tribe that became arrogant because of the arrival of Huma. The people of the Descent tribe were thinking about other things. They failed to respond as quickly as the opponents because of the sudden change, except the 3 senior totem warriors and some vigilant and sharp people. Those with slow responses had not yet acted. But the stone swords brought a gust of wind with them when they just waved the sword. This made the people feel the ferocity. Whiz whiz. A dozen warriors of the Descent tribe who responded slowly were directly cut in two. The moving weapons caused a smell of blood. Thanks to the tacit understanding of more than 20 people, in this ferocious attack, there was no error. They could always accurately hit their enemies and avoid hitting their own even when they attacked with full strength. Although there were only over 20 people, they were as powerful as an army. Wherever they arrived, much blood splashed and the ground was covered with corpses. The wind blowing into the mountain spread the pungent smell of blood to every corner of the mountain. The onlookers, who had been staring at this place, had different facial expressions after seeing this scene. Killings happened every day in this place. I kill you, or you kill me. They were used to seeing the murders and became indifferent. But this was the first time they saw such a ferocious battle. The people of the Descent tribe became even more scared. After they reacted to it, they started a counterattack, attacking the leader of the traveling team of the Descent tribe. Mai used his full strength every time and did not hide anything. A habit from the hunts. He did not avoid but directly confronted with him in this arrogant and fierce way. His every step was as heavy as that of a ferocious beast stamping on the ground. He would certainly crush the stones at his feet, and the wind blew the fragments and dust up from the ground. Boom! The 2 leaders confronted with each other and neither would give way. This moment, the ground at their feet cracked. Even the mountain rocks cracked. The stones splashed like a blooming lotus. At first, Huma was shocked and then was endlessly furious. He did not expect the people of the Flaming Horns tribe would actually dare to attack them. He used the stick to shove the man in front away. Huma did not care whether the tribesmen could survive or not. He just rushed to the nearest totem warrior. People originally around Huma hurriedly dispersed and did not move forward. If any one of them disturbed Huma, they would end up being beaten by the stick, just like the poor guy. Seeing Huma go towards Langa, Shashwan changed his target and ran there. Langa was strong enough to deal with the others, but he was unable to defeat Huma. Because of the sudden attack, Huma could not attend to Lang Georgia. His stone stick lifted over his head and it hit the sword which was swinging towards him. In this moment, Huma could not help but change his expression. His wrist, arm and shoulder, because of this collision, suffered from a big shock. Though he was a senior totem warrior, he could not underestimate this strength. Looking at the person who slashed at him, Huma was shocked again. He was the young man who had killed the intermediate totem warrior with one strike. Chapter 255, Battle. Huma hadn't thought about it a lot. Since Shashwan came, he would naturally no longer focus on others. He moved and the stone stick in his hand leaned towards one side to evade this strike. However, Huma did not expect that Shashwan would move much faster than he imagined. When the sword in his hand collided with a stone stick, the sword moved with a little strength. He then made another strike. The way in which he slashed was similar to the way he slashed at the beasts during hunting. However, This was not the end. The third strike, the fourth strike, one strike after another, as long as this stone stick was shoved away, Huma's head would be cut down, being attacked by successive strikes. Huma only resisted with his stone stick. The sword hit the stone stick with such a violent force. Some stones spattered around and caused sharp rattle. The sound became louder and even louder than the sound issued by both in the fight. The storm-like attacks made him find it hard to resist. Those who saw them in the surrounding area were shocked. They all looked over there in a daze. Before the battle, they didn't expect this would happen. Who was Huma? Many travelers who often rested here were familiar with him. He was also one of the well-known killers of the Decisive tribe. Now, however, this senior totem warrior was being beaten badly by a young intermediate totem warrior of the Flaming Horns tribe. However, Shashwan was also unusual. Obviously he was not a senior totem warrior, but his power and speed were superior to other intermediate totem warriors. Looking at the others of the Flaming Horns tribe, everyone was surprised. It seemed the people of the Flaming Horns tribe were somewhat unusual. They were more powerful than those at the same level of other tribes in a one-to-one fight. The most unusual person was the one who was fighting Huma. It was expected that the Decisive tribe would be stronger, for there were 3 senior totem warriors, while there were only 2 in the other tribe. But now, they couldn't draw a conclusion in a short time. But if it went on like this, everyone was not optimistic about the victory of the Decisive tribe. The Decisive tribe was overwhelmed. Ouch! Even if the Decisive tribe won, they would suffer a lot. In a short period of time, they could not recover. So, if they wanted to avoid this result, the 3 leaders of the Decisive tribe had to change the current situation. Over there, the crowd once again focused on Huma and Shashwan. If the Decisive tribe wanted to change the situation, they all depended on Huma, for the other 2 were in worse condition. Although Huma was said to be violent in this area, he was not a fool and he was clear about his situation. On his forehead, a lot of sweat was dripping, but he did not wipe it off. He did not expect that he would be beaten by such a young man and fail to fight back. He had no choice but to defend. Facing such an attack, he couldn't do anything more to fight back. His opponent was just an intermediate totem warrior. Though he was unusual, Huma was sure of it. Shameful. It was shameful. The angrier Huma was, the more he concentrated. He would die with just some negligence in such a fight between 2 powerful men. Huma had been in such a trouble frequently. Shashwan once again waved his sword to cut at him, and Huma roared. The totem power increased again, almost to the limit. The rock under Huma's feet issued a loud sound and was dented instantly. He also looked shorter instantly. His feet were in a crater. His straw shoes had been shattered. Huma's knees bent. At this moment, he was like a pulled arrow, ready for flight. The moment that the sword and stick collided, the full outbreak occurred. The palm of Huma's hand was deeply sunken in. The fractured rocks and stone chips around the place were all soaring high. If the distance was close, you could even hear some breaking sounds from the rocks under the feet. This time Shashwan did not slash at him successively, but removed his sword. Lifting the sword, Shashwan stepped back because of the impact. He didn't attack him again immediately. Holding the sword, his hand was bleeding. Resisting against the force of Huma, Shashwan was also hurt and his whole arm was numb. There was a gap on the stone sword and Shashwan, familiar with the sword, knew that it could only withstand 2 more of Huma's 2 hits. His third hit would break it. Above them, the young people who had been concerned about the fight in front of the hole excitedly said, "Unexpectedly the young man can even defeat Huma. He looks as young as me?" He was happy to see Huma's being defeated. But next to him, another young man was not so optimistic, and he looked a little worried. "Oh, the young man will lose. What a pity." Coming out of the hole, Gula saw that scene and also nodded. He looked indifferent and said, "That young man failed to kill Huma just now, so he will suffer. He is good at attacking suddenly and quickly." Just when he attacked Huma, it was also a sudden attack. If not, it is difficult for him to defeat him. Now, Huma has recovered. He will not have another chance to kill him. Indeed, even though he is strong, he is just an intermediate totem warrior, and it's undeniable that there is a gap. said the man next to Gula. Gula's eyes moved and said, "Have you noticed that the young man mobilized the totem power faster than the other two senior totem warriors? The faster he mobilizes the totem power, the more skillful he is at controlling the totem power." Hearing that, the others fell silent. They did not notice this, and if so, it was really shocking. That young man was not inferior to those of the tribes in the central region, not to mention the fact that he was young. One man said with puzzlement, "Where is the Flaming Horns tribe from in the end? It should have been famous for its strength. Is it too far away from here?" More than 20 people could defeat this team of the Descent tribe. How about the entire tribe? How many unusual people like him were in that tribe? While the few people above the hole were talking, the war in front of the Descent tribe's hole continued. Outside the pit, Huma looked very savage, walking barefoot on the ground. Wherever he went, the broken stones were crushed into chips. His red eyes showed he was ready to kill him. The people of the Descent tribe in the surrounding area saw Huma and could not help but once again retreat to stay far away from him. Instantly, it was an empty field. In this field, there was only Huma and Shashwan on the other end. Huma's toes touched the ground and his body moved. He rushed straight at Shashwan. Each step caused a footprint in the ground and the ground also shook rapidly. The wind blew the stone chips and dust. Huma's arm that was holding that stone stick swelled. With the shaking of the shoulders, his arm hit at Shashwan like a whip. Where the arm arrived, the wind blew. The strong wind blew and Shashwan carefully listened to the movement around. His eyes flashed and he didn't retreat. Instead, he just moved forward. When they were about to confront with each other, he suddenly changed his direction and instantly slowed down and was no longer aggressive. He looked like a sleek and cunning loach. He turned around and changed the direction. It was not an attack, but a retreat. He stepped back a few meters. Boom! The stone stick hit the ground and the ground trembled again. There was another pit in the ground. Huma failed to hit the target. He didn't stop, but continued to attack as Shashwan had attacked him in the beginning without pause. The large stone stick seemed to be light and integrated with his arm. Each hit was very heavy. Spattering stone chips were like blossoming flowers. They kept falling. People around there avoided coming close to them. No one wanted to stay in such a dangerous place. Therefore, even if many people of the Descent tribe stayed here, many of them hadn't taken actions. In particular, people near the three leaders had left and it was empty. Boom! It was another heavy hit on the ground, but the target escaped it. Even the onlookers could not figure out why Shashwan kept dodging. Retreat? No. Attack? Number. Sometimes that young man even appeared in the front. Was he too confident? Above the hole, the people who had been concerned about the fight looked to Gula. Gula had just said the young man would certainly suffer, but now it seemed that the young man still had a chance to win. Gula could not help but get flushed, for he really did not expect that man to suddenly change his strategy. "Well, look, keep looking," Gula said. Huma's stone stick was worn out. Even the finest stone could not stand such repeated hits. Chaka, Chaka. The ground under the feet issued the sound. It was not the sound made by one or two stones, but the whole mountain. People with good hearing could not help but stop to think about it. For those travelers who had much experience, they were familiar with such a sound. So did the people of the Flaming Horns tribe. Everyone in the field seemed to stop suddenly. At the top, probably because of the fight, a protruding stone was shattered. Now, the stone detached from the mountain, rolled down, smashed on the aisle in front of the whole of the Descent tribe and made a loud sound. Kaka kaka tilde. A louder sound was approaching again. No one moved and the ground under the feet trembled as if it was about to break. The mountain was going to collapse. No one knew if there was any collapse in other places. Whether it collapsed or not, they had better leave here. If one fell down or was hit by the stones, even senior totem warriors would be injured. No one wanted to be hurt because of this. Regardless of the confrontation, the people of the Descent tribe and the Flaming Horns tribe evacuated. Some people of the Descent tribe entered the hole and some of them retreated towards the two sides of the aisle. Except Shashwan. Just when they wanted to leave, Shashwan suddenly stepped on the ground. He moved towards Huma and swiftly slashed at Huma, who was about to run to the entrance of the hole. Huma was furious, He did not expect this young man to even attack him regardless of the danger at this moment. Chapter 256, The Collapse. Shashwan attacked Huma again. He could only lift the stick once again to stop his sword. First strike, second strike. The ground under the feet of Huma was shaking from blocking the two fierce attacks. More and more sounds were issued. Just as everyone thought he would attack consecutively again, there was the third strike. Hearing a sound, Shashwan noticed the sword in his hand was broken in half. When Shashwan struck at Huma for the third time, he lowered his body and suddenly changed his momentum. He agilely went past Huma swiftly, the half-broken sword still in his hand. He cut at him so fast that Huma failed to dodge it, drawing blood from his waist. Huma did not expect such a thing to happen to him, but fortunately he reacted quickly and tried to avoid it. Shashwan only held half-sword in his hand. If the blade was intact, Huma would probably have been cut in half like the first man. Although the wound was not fatal, it was a serious one. His cold sweat was dripping. This strike scared Huma. Feeling the shaking of the mountain under his feet, Huma ignored his wound and hurried to the hole with his stick. At this moment, Kuntu and the others anxiously looked above. After all, they were not totem warriors and their eyesight was not good enough to see what was happening above. Based on the discussion of those travelers around there, they guessed the situation above. Like others, they were not optimistic about the victory of the 20-plus people of the Flaming Horns tribe. In such a fight between senior totem warriors, one more powerful warrior could guarantee the victory. All in all, Kuntu and Kai felt that Flaming Horns tribe was less likely to win. However, judging from the discussions they heard, the situation above was really different from what they imagined. Kuntu, I cannot see it clearly. Could you tell me who is fighting against Huma? Having lived on the grasslands for a long time, Kai naturally knew about the Desan tribe's bad reputation and Huma was famous for his strength. However, Kai could not figure out who in the end fought against Huma and was seemingly likely to win. He wondered who could strike at Huma. Kuntu could not see it clearly, and he tried hard to think of the 20 individuals who had come with him. Among them, there was only one possible man according to the discussion of those travelers. Shashwan, except him, I could not think of anyone else. That is the youngest intermediate totem warrior with a stone sword. However, Huma is a senior totem warrior, one of the top 3 warriors of the Desan tribe. Kai could not believe it. Kuntu looked up. When Shashwan cut the intermediate totem warrior of the Desan tribe in half, did you see it? Kai was silent. That strike really scared Kai. Kaka. Above, they could hear the cracks of the mountain even more clearly. Everyone below the whole of the Desan tribe hurriedly escaped. If that section of the mountain collapsed and hit them, they would be seriously injured or die. Moreover, there was a passage in front of that hole. It was the widest part of the whole mountain. The people who could rest in that hole were powerful. After hundreds of years, a passage the width of about 10 meters was formed. By comparison, no one tried to occupy the holes near the top of the mountain. Because few tribes rested there, there were less disputes. Fewer people living there meant the passages were narrower. Therefore, looking down from the top, you could see that the place where the people of Desan tribe were resting had the widest passage. Once it collapsed, a terrible threat would be posed to those people below them. Under such a circumstance, those below it hurried to escape, and those close to the bottom of the mountain at once took away the livestock tied in that place for fear that it would fall down. In front of entrance of the whole of the Desan tribe, hearing a loud sound behind him, which was caused by a man walking on the ground, Huma tried his best to rush to the hole. The wound at his waist was bleeding because he was running so fast. Looking at the man holding the bow at the entrance of the hole, Huma roared, "Shoot him!" If he could have killed Shashwan with an arrow, he would have done so long ago. Huma knew this, but at this moment he needed someone to stop Shashwan. He did not want to fall down with this section of the mountain. The archer in the hole also reacted quickly and drew the bow to shoot Shashwan. Shashwan slowed down to dodge those arrows and stamped on the ground fiercely. Some egg-sized rocks were shaken. Shashwan stamped on the ground fiercely again and many people became furious. "Shit, It is going to collapse. Stop stamping on it. Kaka. They could see the clear cracks spreading from under the feet of Shashwan to other places, connected with a gap in the wall of mountain. Boom. A section of the mountain, over 30 meters in length, collapsed nearly 1 arm height lower. Many different sizes of stones crushed and rolled down from the mountain. The crowd below it saw the scene and ran. They were not hit by the falling stones, but while looking at those constantly rolling stones, the travelers near it could not help but tremble. No matter where they came from and which party they supported, the travelers were intimidated by this sudden change. The battle between the Decisive tribe and the Flaming Horns tribe had just begun. So why did it collapse? Such great strength. Many tribes around there did not allow senior totem warriors to fight, because the fight between them would cause a lot of damage. Shashwan did not retreat because of the collapse. He swung the arm holding the broken sword and the blade hit the flying stones. The stones didn't get destroyed, but they moved as fast as meteors. The sound of bone cracking and a body being punctured could not be heard clearly, because of the loud sound made by the collapse of the mountain. The archers in the hole fell down one by one. Mai and the others acted immediately. Shashwan didn't do this impulsively. He did it to attract the attention of those archers in the hole so that they could evacuate. Among the over 20 people of the Flaming Horns tribe, many were injured, including 3 who couldn't walk. If the archers shot arrows at them, they definitely would not be able to evade them. Fortunately, now those archers paid all their attention to Shashwan, who was getting closer to the hole. At the same time, the others could leave with the injured as soon as possible. There were many limbs and corpses on the ground of the Decisive tribe. Moreover, some living people who could not move were abandoned. The archers fell down one by one. Huma pushed aside the man next to him. He took out his good bow, which was made by himself, made of the best ox horn in the tribe, as well as the bamboo which they exchanged for with a large number of livestock. It was different from those other bows. He was drawing the bow. A sharp sound was heard and an arrow was shot. This arrow was much faster than those shot by those archers. It had a much higher chance of killing its target. Shashwan did not dodge it, but twisted his wrist to block the arrow shooting at him with his sword. Boom! The stone head of the arrow broke and Shashwan's sword was dented. Feeling the strength coming from his hand, Shashwan's eyes flashed. He looked at the bow in Huma's hand in the hole. He did not know if that was their best bow. If they could make a better bow, Shashwan wanted to find the material to make one which totem warriors could draw. In that case, such bow could help them defeat the Wanshi tribe in the future. Not enough. If the bow was a little stronger and the man drew it with greater strength, Shashwan blocked the arrow, but Huma didn't stop. He took out 3 arrows, and shot the 3 almost at the same time. Then he quickly took out another 3 from the arrow tube. He took out arrows, drew the bow, and shot them in a short period of time. Judging from this, you could know he was very skillful at it. However, the bow could only withstand limited strength. Huma, the senior totem warrior, could only suppress his strength to shoot these arrows. Otherwise, the bow would break. Huma tried to hit Shashwan and kill him. If not, at least he could force him to fall down with a section of the mountain. Shashwan no longer moved forward, but suddenly pushed off the ground to dodge the 3 arrows, and he waved the broken sword to stop the ensuing arrows. He only had the half sword and it took him great efforts to stop them. If he had had a complete sword, it would have saved a lot of effort. The people of his tribe had evacuated, so Shashwan stamped hard on the ground. The rocks on the cliff of the mountain shook violently and some gravels went rolling off from the cliff. Large chunks in the passage in front of the hole separated from the entire mountain. They didn't fall down consecutively, but directly collapsed. In the big ring-shaped mountain, the sound of the gliding mountain overwhelmed everything. Some of the people below it tried to dodge it, while some continued to watch the scene. Some horses tied in a safe place at the foot of the mountain heard the sound and were still restlessly treading on the ground. Thanks to the collapse of this section, the stones in other places also fell down. In a second, those who stood outside the hole went into the hole. In the location of the people of the Decisive tribe, the situation was worse. Just now, A man had been hit by a rock falling down. Huma was standing at the entrance of the hole and did not dare to stretch his neck. From time to time a rock fell down. He was afraid that if he turned his head, he would be hit. He saw the piece of rock where Shashwan stood fall down. Huma felt reassured. Even if he survived, he would get injured, right? In that case, he would no longer need to be afraid of him. He touched the bleeding wound at his waist and Huma's eyes looked sinister. He did not expect to get cut and even get injured. Even he had experienced a lot these years. He couldn't calm down now. Kill them. Kill all of them. Huma thought about it. However, he just put down the bow and intended to look for herbs to smear his wounds. At this moment, he heard the man next to him shouting, "What's wrong?" Huma hadn't looked for the herbs and asked the man next to him. "There. Over there." The man pointed out. Huma looked outside and just turned his head. A gray shadow flashed and the wind blew. The half-sword was struck at his neck. When he thought he was temporarily safe, he was killed. Puff. Blood splashed. Before Huma fell to the ground, he saw the person who should have fallen down with the mountain holding the claw of an eagle and rising from below. Chapter 257. Nice to meet you. Suddenly, an eagle flew into the arched mountain, and it was quite a big eagle. If it stood on the ground, it was as tall as the total height of two men. This was quite odd. However, the people of the tribes on the grasslands were familiar with such eagles, and the travelers had seen such eagles. After seeing Chaka, people who were shouting at the collapse of the mountain paid attention to him and then they all looked at a hole near the top of the mountain. In front of the hole, Gula and several other people are stunned. That is a giant eagle? The two young men who had been watching the bottom of the mountain were shocked. So the wounds on the Shandau's body were caused by this eagle? Another man said. Shandau was the name of the eagle which they brought with them this time. It was raised by Gula since childhood, but at this moment, the injured Shandau was resting to recover his wounds. Oh. Why does the Flaming Horns tribe have such a giant mountain eagle? Isn't it said that the giant mountain eagles stay away from human? A slightly older man of the Hua tribe said. They always thought that their tribe was the most liked by the giant mountain eagles. Except their tribe, only few other tribes could raise giant mountain eagles. That included the Feather tribe. Even if a tribe could raise a giant mountain eagle, it was quite difficult. It was common that the mountain eagles raised by them pecked them. How arrogant the mountain eagles were! How could they so easily be tamed by human beings? However, here, this unknown Flaming Horns tribe had such an eagle, and it was stronger than the one they brought with them. They were similar of size, but if Shandau was injured by this one, it was very powerful. They had planned to watch the fun like the others. But unexpectedly they found this. Gula, what do we do? The people around all looked to Gula, for this time they were led by Gula. Everything must be decided by him. Gula thought for a moment and was about to say something, but at this time, a loud eagle scream came from the bottom of the mountain. Jiao Tilda. After Chaka lifted Shashwan, Shashwan landed in the place where Mai and the others were standing. Chaka flew up to the entrance of the hole of the Descent tribe. Its large claw grasped the stone wall, and then gradually dug out the stones in the mountain wall. Some loose stones were dug out and thrown to the bottom. All the people of the Descent tribe did not dare to stretch their heads in the hole for fear that they would be hit. After a short while, Chaka wanted to leave. It disliked this small place and felt restrained here, for there were people with arrows in their hands. When it was about to fly away, it heard an eagle scream from above. Whoosh tilde. Close to the hole at the top of the mountain, an injured giant mountain eagle with few feathers rushed out. As soon as it saw the eagle, Chaka got angry and did not hurry to leave. It flew up and rushed to fight it with his claws. Shandau, come back! Gula was so anxious that he almost rushed out. If he could fly, he would have already flown out. Comparing the two eagles, he knew Chaka would win. Shashwan whistled at once to tell Chaka to stay calm. The resting travelers in the mountain felt more and more confused when they saw the two eagles appear. At the same time, they re-evaluated the strength of the Flaming Horns tribe. This tribe was really a lot more powerful than they had thought. and they intended to get more information about this tribe. Shashwan ignored the Descent tribe, gave a signal to Mai and then climbed up the mountain. In the hole where Gula and the others were resting, Shashwan saw the injured giant eagle standing next to a person who did not show obvious hostility, but curiosity. He looked at the other few people and then made a gesture. Because of the sudden appearance of Gula and the several people, Chaka flew up to avoid the danger. But when it saw Shashwan's gesture, it flew down. Although the passage here was not wide, it was enough for Chaka to stand on it. Standing behind Shashwan, Chaka felt like he was supported. He dared to scream towards the eagle and the man beside it. It sounded like J was laughing at them for seeking a helper. Gula looked at the eagle closely. Although the two eagles looked alike, he always felt they were a bit different. He knew that even if another eagle of a similar size was called here to help them, they would still be defeated. The Hua tribe, Gula. Gula said. Shashwan raised his eyebrows, and said with his eyes showing his joy, the Flaming Horns tribe, Shashwan. Shashwan's smile surprised Gula and a few people. He smiled without flattery, but friendliness. However, the two young warriors thought Shashwan showed his friendliness because he knew they were from the Hua tribe. After all knew the Hua tribe was the strongest on the grasslands. He did not want to offend the strong, so he had this attitude. The people of the Descent tribe all hoped that the Hua tribe would fight with the Flaming Horns tribe, because they had suffered from serious losses. Huma had been killed, and the team leader was also seriously injured. Another senior totem warrior lost an arm and was about to die. If they continued to fight, all of them might lose their lives. However, the atmosphere above was not as tense as anyone else imagined. The Hua tribe left a good impression on Shashwan. Those long years ago, the ancestors of the Flaming Horns tribe probably had had a good relationship with the Hua tribe. And thanks to that tribe, they met that eagle. Do you know our tribe? Gula asked. I have heard of it. Shashwan said. The young man behind Gula was disappointed. Of course, the Hua tribe was the strongest tribe on the grasslands. Looking at Shandao with the many wounds, he touched his feathers to comfort it. I will let Gula give a lesson to the Flaming Horns tribe later. As for why he let it up to Gula, rather than take revenge himself, that is because he knows he can't defeat Shashwan. When the people of the Hua tribe thought that Shashwan would say what they expected, unexpectedly he said, the Hua tribe is the first tribe I met. Oh, is it? Gula casually asked. He in fact wanted to ask Shashwan about the giant eagle behind him. This patterned stone, it has the totem patterns of your tribe. As Shashwan said, Gula, who was staring at Chaka, suddenly looked to Shashwan, from top to bottom, as if he had never seen Shashwan before. His face also looked serious, and he asked while fixing his eyes on Shashwan, that piece of stone, how did you get it? A giant eagle gave it to me. Hearing Shashwan's words, Gula hadn't said anything yet, but the young man behind him could not help but shout, nonsense, how can a giant eagle give it to you? Shut up. Gula shouted at the man behind him. I'm telling the truth, the eagle's claws were painted with the totem patterns of your tribe. Facing with their questions, Shashwan was not annoyed, and continued to say, the eagle is very large. A layer of skin had come off from its claws. The pattern is not very clear. Listening to Shashwan's description, Gula and the several people thought of something. They trembled and breathed quickly. Only one eagle fit Shashwan's description, and it had again left the tribe at that time. In their tribe, it had a status as high as the chief. Why did the people of the Flaming Horns tribe encounter that one? Why did it give the pattern stone to them without much consideration? It should have returned already, I think. I hope I will have a chance to see it again. Shashwan said. He really wanted to see the giant eagle again. Yes, it has returned, and it is very fine now. Gula finally calmed down. His face no longer looked serious. He smiled happily, opened his arms and walked towards Shashwan. He gave him a hug. This was how they expressed their joy. Nice to meet you. Gula said. As long as that eagle had been willing to give the pattern stone to him, They shouldn't be hostile to him. The travelers who had fixed their eyes on them were extremely surprised when seeing Gulaw's action. What happened there? Why did the people of the Hua tribe and those of the Flaming Horns tribe not fight? Instead, they seemed to be old friends. Different from the stunned travelers, the people of the Desan tribe were pale at the moment. Chapter 258, How Big? Seeing Shashwan talk leisurely with the people above, Mai felt relieved. It was the first time they came here, but Kuntu had told them that many tribes took refuge here, and the people of the stronger tribes rested in the higher holes. Having fought against the Desan tribe, the warriors of the Flaming Horns tribe were too tired and injured. They were not as strong as before. If they confronted with another strong tribe from the grasslands, they had a slim chance at winning. After all, they had no advantage in numbers. Moreover, Mai felt that the man named Gula was much stronger than the leader of the Desan tribe, and he was not sure whether he could defeat him. Mai looked down to the whole of the Desan tribe and his eyes once again looked fierce. When hunting in the ferocious beast forest, they had better kill the target, or a similar situation like with the thorn black wind would occur, and they would suffer from unexpected attacks. He was going to ask the slightly injured warriors to go with him to kill the rest of the Desan tribe. At this moment, he heard the leader of that tribe above him shout loudly, "Gula, I have something to say to you." Hearing his words, Mai prepared his sword to fight, and made a gesture towards the others to signal them not to take actions. Although they had heard about the Hua tribe from those other tribes, they were unfamiliar with them. After all, Mai was not sure about the response of the people of that tribe, so they didn't act and looked on to see what would happen next. The leader of the Desan tribe, who had been aware of the intention of Mai, avoided starting a war fight them. Instead, he came up with another idea in order to get out of trouble. Above him, Gula frowned. He didn't intend to intervene in the dispute between the Flaming Horns tribe and Desan tribe. In this place the strong had the say. If two tribes had a conflict, they should have a fight. The winner could decide everything. The loser would retreat or would be slaughtered. Therefore, even if all team members of the Desan tribe were killed, the people who rested here would not think the Flaming Horns tribe was evil. However, why did the Desan tribe ask them for help? They couldn't have forgotten the basic rule, especially those from the Desan tribe. They had slaughtered many teams before. The people of the Hua tribe would not engage in it unless they could get some benefits. Gula closed his eyes and the others failed to guess what he was thinking. Then he raised his head, smiled at Shashwan and said, "Wait." This meant he told Shashwan that he had to wait for those coming up from below. Shashwan did not argue with him. Instead he rose his hand to stop Chaka, who wanted to fight with Shandao. The leader of the traveling team of the Desan tribe climbed up and reached there, with blood on his body. He glanced at Shashwan with fear and vigilance. Then he walked to Gula and whispered something. They went into the hole to have a secret conversation. Gula just changed his facial expression for an instant. Shashwan saw this and sighed silently. It seemed that they would not be able to kill the whole group. Walking to the edge, Shashwan looked down and signaled Mai and the others to clean their wounds. About 5 minutes later, the leader of the traveling team of the Desan tribe and Gula came out. The former didn't show his emotion on his face. The latter looked upset, as if he lost something very important. It was likely that he had promised to give something good to Gula. After the leader of the Desan tribe went down, Gula asked Shashwan, "In your team, who is the leader?" Shashwan shouted towards the people below, "Mai, come here." Mai was ready for this. He climbed up, said to Gula, "Mai, Flaming Horns tribe." Gula, Hua tribe. Gula didn't put on airs because of the mystery of the Flaming Horns tribe and the giant eagle mentioned by Shashwan. "Let those of the Desan tribe go," Gula said while pointing to those next to him. 3 of the Hua tribe came down together, carrying several large bags. "This is the compensation for you." Opening the bag, he found there were a lot of jades, shells and some stones similar to the water moonstones of the drumming tribe. They could exchange them with others. If all were exchanged for water moonstones, they could get more than twice they had gotten from the drumming tribe. Mai thought for a moment, and said, "Deal." Gula only said to let them go. He didn't care what would happen after they left. which meant he would not intervene in their disputes next time. Mai also understood this. Over the past 2 years, before the return to the old land, they had been trained by the shaman as leaders of the hunting teams, so they now had a different mindset. Below, the people of the Desan tribe left with the slightly wounded warriors. Most of those with serious injuries were abandoned. Langa and a few people saw this. They wanted to say something, but were stopped by Wei, who said, "Wait." Since the Hua tribe got engaged, they could not keep fighting. Besides the things that the Desan tribe took out, there was a wooden box, which was given by Gula. The box contained many rare herbs. Of course, the people of the Flaming Horns tribe had seen many quality herbs, but right now they didn't have enough herbs for treatment and first aid. Mai talked with Gula again to confirm that Gula would not interfere in their disputes in the future. Then he left to take care of the wounds of the injured warriors with the herbs. Mai went down with only the wooden box filled with herbs. He carried none of the animal skin bags that contained jade and shells. "Hey, you don't want this?" A man next to Gula shouted. He had just said that, and then a gust of wind blew. The several bags on the ground were all grabbed by Chaka, and then he flew down. The people of the Hua tribe glanced at Chaka and looked towards Shandao, who was standing next to Gula. They thought this eagle was really a lot more helpful than certain others, for it could help carry the bags. On the contrary, their eagle even had difficulty in catching a rabbit. "Go in and chat." Gula pointed to the hole where they rested and said to Shashwan, "Good." Although Shashwan was unhappy for the intervention of the Hua tribe, he saw Gula and noticed he had something to say. He didn't refuse him. After entering the hole, Gula told someone to guard the hole to stop others from getting close. "Do you know what he just said to me?" Gula asked. This he referred to the leader of the Desan tribe. "No idea." Shashwan had not expected Gula to even tell him this. Gula said in a low voice, "A fire crystal mine." Shashwan's eyelids twitched. No wonder the people of the Hua tribe were willing to help those of the Desan tribe. The fire crystal mine was really tempting. In the grasslands, there is a small mine. The Desan tribe found it, but they have not been able to grab it yet. There are others trying to snatch it. Gula said with irony, "I know what they're playing at. They want us to fight for it so that they can get it without much effort, isn't that right?" Gula paused and asked Shashwan, "Do you want to have a look at it?" Shashwan shook his head. "Since it is in the grasslands, we will not go there, for it is too far." Gula had asked this in order to guess the situation of the Flaming Horns tribe based on Shashwan's reaction. Unexpectedly he got such an answer. "Where is your tribe? If we come out for travel again, we may visit Flaming Horns tribe." Gula said, "Oh, it is not too far away." Shashwan pointed to one direction. "Go in that direction. It is in the ferocious beast mountain forest." Gula, the others of the Hua tribe had been listening carefully. Even Shandao, who had stretched to look outside, also made a strange cry. Gula no longer looked calm and said, "If I remember correctly, the Wan Shi tribe is over there." "Yes," Shashwan nodded. "It is just next to the Wan Shi tribe. They are outside the forest, but we are inside it." Gula asked more questions about the Flaming Horns tribe, but Shashwan didn't reply. Gula knew that even if he kept asking, he would not get the answers. Then he talked about the Hua tribe and his keeping of Shandao. "It's not easy." Gula sighed. Shashwan nodded while listening to him. "Raising them is really not easy." "Indeed." Speaking of this, Gula was excited again. In the beginning, Shandao was the smallest egg in the nest. "Like this," Gula said, and also swung his hands to show how small it had been. Shashwan looked. As Gula said, if the egg was put vertically, it came higher than his knee. It had been the smallest egg in that nest. Because of this, Shashwan looked strange. Gula spoke excitedly. When Shandao came out, he was the weakest among his brothers and sisters. After all, it was the smallest egg. Some people said it is difficult to hatch the smallest egg of the giant mountain eagle. Even if it hatched, it would also be difficult for it to survive, let alone grow up. When I brought Shandao here, I had little hope. Unexpectedly, Shandao survived, and now he became the strongest among his siblings. Even in the whole tribe, Among the mountain eagles of the same size, he is the most powerful, Gula said with obvious pride on his face. In the Hua tribe, he really deserved praise because of this. Unexpectedly, during Shandao's first outing, he encountered Chaka and was defeated. He suffered a crushing defeat. The fight between the giant mountain eagles had always been like this. There were many fights among the mountain eagles in the tribe, and many losers even suffered a lot more than Shandao had. Gula thought he wasn't bullied, for the giant mountain eagles should meet challenges head-on and become tough. In this way, they would be able to overcome difficulties in the future. This was why when Gula saw Shandao defeated, he didn't get very angry. Thinking of this, Gula curiously asked Shashwan, "Chaka looks very good, and very strong." "It is the strongest among the eagles of the same size I have seen." "The egg was also very big, right?" Shashwan : "Oh. How big was it in the end?" "Don't worry. Tell me the truth. I have seen bigger eggs." "Tell me how big it was." Shashwan showed his index finger and thumb, and made a gesture, like this. "Gula, do you think I have not seen the giant mountain eagle eggs?" Shashwan was helpless, for he didn't know there were big and small eagle eggs. There were totally different sizes. He had held the egg in his hand and he had intended to cook it. Chapter 259, yes, right there. Shashwan isn't going to say that he had almost cooked Chaka. If he told them about it, the people of the Hua tribe may become even more agitated. Impossible. It's absolutely impossible. The several young people of the Hua tribe became impatient. They were just pretending to focus on cutting the wood, but now they rushed over, stared at Shashwan and said, "You're a liar." Shashwan stayed calm and said, "I didn't lie." Gula observed Shashwan's facial expression carefully. He knew Shashwan was serious and then asked, "What did your eagle eat?" "It ate many kinds of things, but what it ate the most was the meat of ferocious beasts," Shashwan said. The people of the Hua tribe became silent again. If they hadn't seen Chaka or hadn't witnessed Shandao having suffered a crushing defeat, on hearing Shashwan's words, they would have directly shouted at Shashwan, "You are lying." But this was a fact. "No, that is not the reason." Gula shook his head and firmly opposed to it. "There are many ferocious beasts on the grasslands, but I have never seen what you mentioned. They are totally different." "To be honest, an egg of the size you mentioned cannot be a real giant mountain eagle egg. The other birds cannot live so long, because they are not strong enough to go to the Eagle Mountain." "Eagle Mountain? Have not you heard of it?" "Only those eagles which have been to Eagle Mountain are the real giant mountain eagles." "Of course, strictly speaking, Shandao is not a real one. But when it feels that it is strong enough, it will go there, just like his parents did." "The parents of the small eagles you mentioned have never been to Eagle Mountain, so they are different from Shandao's parents." "So, what you mean is that Chaka's parents are not real giant mountain eagles. Their size is not large, and their egg is also small. That's what you think, right?" "Yes." Gula thought that no one knew more about the giant mountain eagle than the people of the Hua tribe. "Oh, he may have been to Eagle Mountain," Shashwan said. Everyone in the hole were in a daze and fixed their eyes on Shashwan. He had disappeared for a period of time and he got bigger when he came back. Shashwan continued to say. The people in the hole were still in silence. They thought it was unbelievable at first, but as they thought about it again, they found it was the only explanation. Outside the hole, having delivered the things to Mai and the others, Chaka flew into the air. He didn't see Shashwan, so went to the entrance of the hole. He stretched his neck to look inside. Gula had just told the man who guarded the hole to stop others from coming close, but he didn't say the eagle was not allowed to come here. So, when Chaka was approaching, the guard didn't stop him. Instead, he let him get closes. But Chaka didn't go into the hole. Chaka had fought with Shandao, and there were a lot of injuries on his body. Now he had almost completely recovered and was very energetic. Looking at Shandao, he was full of confidence. Gula sighed deeply. I believe you. Chaka had been to the Eagle Mountain. That was why he was much stronger than other eagles of the same size and had a stronger recovery. Chaka and Shandao were different in the beginning. Compared to Shandao, Chaka had no advantage from the start. Fortunately, Chaka had been to the Eagle Mountain, experienced a lot, and finally survived. Now he was superior to Shandao because Shandao had never been to the Eagle Mountain. Amazing. The people of the Hua tribe had doubted Shashwan at first, but now they had no doubt at all. Where is the Eagle Mountain? Someone asked Shashwan. I don't know. Shashwan replied. He would not say, though he knew. However, the people of the Hua tribe believed Shashwan didn't know about it. The giant mountain eagles went there on their own. The people of the Hua tribe had kept giant mountain eagles for so long, but except a few ancestors, no one had been there. There were few records about that place. When Shashwan went out of the hole, Gula said with enthusiasm, if you plan to have a long journey, you could go to the Hua tribe. We have a lot of giant mountain eagles. Gula paused and added, don't be threatened by the Descent tribe. We don't fear them. Shashwan laughed. We defeated them once, and we can do that again. His words showed arrogance, but those who had seen the people of Descent tribe being defeated believed his words. Gula wanted to say something, but he thought it was unnecessary and then gave up. Shashwan left the hole and climbed down the mountain. Mai and the others had occupied the hole where the Descent tribe had stayed. Are your injuries serious? Shashwan asked. He had glanced at their injuries before going up. He had had no worries about any warriors' lives. It's fine, several cannot walk for a bit, so we will have them stay in the carriage. Mai said. They didn't intend to stay there any longer. Kutu's group had been waiting for them at the foot of the mountain, but because the totem warriors of the Flaming Horns tribe accompanied Kantu and the other people didn't dare to attack them. The people of the Descent tribe had suffered a lot because they had attacked them. After packing, Mai led the group down the mountain. Where are the others? Mai asked. A bit farther from here. Follow me. Kai said at once. He was nervous and excited. Anyway, he felt happy. Out of the mountains, through the extrance, Kantu looked back and said with mixed feelings, unexpectedly, it collapsed. It has seen many fights, and there are some traces left on the passages. That section of the mountain is not strong, and today it was attacked fiercely. It collapsing is only right. Shashwan explained. Mai glanced at those who went with Kai and asked, are you satisfied with me relinquishing chasing and killing those of the Descent tribe? Yes. Yes. Kai and the others said without delay. They were really satisfied. Many warriors of Descent tribes were killed. Moreover, of the 3 senior totem warriors, one was dead and one was disabled. The leader of the traveling team was the only one that was able to continue fighting. Kai and the others thought they had succeeded in taking revenge. Besides, as wanderers, they knew much more about the situation than others and believed Mai had made the best choice. If you aren't satisfied, after you awaken your power, you can go take revenge. Langga smiled and said, awaken. When they heard this word, including Kantu and Kai, they became very anxious. At this time, Shashwan suddenly said, you may not be able to take revenge. Why? Even Mai also looked at Shashwan with confusion. You mean the people of the Hua tribe will help them? Langga asked. No, on the contrary. Shashwan said, daring to use the Hua tribe. Not only will the benefits be fished by the Hua tribe, the Hua tribe will also not let them go. So, next time when we hear of the Descent tribe, that will be the news of the Descent tribe suffering. That traveling team was only one of the force of the Descent tribe. Even though many of its members were killed, they hadn't suffered a crushing defeat. What awaited them was a more catastrophic defeat. Shashwan thought that he shouldn't talk about the fire crystal mine mentioned by Gula, so he decided to tell Mai and the shaman after returning to the tribe. Kai took Shashwan and the others to the mountain where the wanderers rested. Beside the people following Kai and Kuntu, Liang Feng was also here. After Mai met them, he left with all of them. Their purpose of coming to the grasslands this time was to pick up the wanderers and return with them. They met many other wanderers on the way, who later joined them. They had encountered some on their way to the grasslands and had settled them in one place. On the return journey they also picked them up. Finally, the 50 totem warriors that had come here returned to the tribe with nearly 600 wanderers. To meet the demands of so many wanderers, they needed to prepare more food. Fortunately, They had the compensation from the Desan tribe and the water moonstones given by the chief. They exchanged with other tribes for some food, meat and crops. Shashwan also got some seeds. He stashed them with the rest to bring them back. With the wanderers, the team naturally moved slowly. Many people were curious about such a traveling team with hundreds of people and some livestock. Those who created trouble were killed. The warriors were tired, but Chaka and Caesar helped them. As for the other teams that were dispatched, they had it harder than Mai's team. At least Mai's side had carriages and enough money. The Flaming Horns tribe gained fame because of the actions of those teams. There was now a tribe called Flaming Horns tribe in the central region. The people of the tribe called Flaming Horns were very fierce. The people of that tribe were fierce, and according to the wanderers on the grasslands, they raised two ferocious beasts, namely, a wolf and an eagle. No one knew whether they kept other ferocious beasts. What? Where is the tribe? Go straight in that direction, next to the Wanshi tribe. Yes, right there, in the ferocious beast mountain forest. Chapter 260, Clean Up and Expand. Before the winter came, the 10 teams sent to pick up the wanderers all returned to the ferocious beast mountain forest. At this time, they brought back wanderers and those who had joined them already, together with the original members of the Flaming Horns tribe, totaled 8,000 to 9,000. Together with the wanderers from other tribes, now in the old land, there were about 10,000 people in the Flaming Horns tribe. There were so many people, they had never imagined this happening. The more people, the livelier it was. In the tribe, many houses had been built. Basically they were huts. Simple huts could be built in a short time. They were just temporary shelter for them. Everyone could build different houses for themselves as they liked in the future. Totem warriors guarded this place and took turns to hunt to get some food. They needed to hunt many ferocious beasts, for there was a large number of people in the tribe. The wanderers of the tribe and the foreign tribes tried to be helpful. They took an active part in building huts, cutting trees, cooking, and so on. This was a chance for them to leave a good impression. Craftsmen, of course, were asked to help. Those who knew how to build ships, make pottery, process herbs, were asked to give a hand. Therefore, in the tribe, it was also common that some wanderers pushed and pulled single-wheeled or two-wheeled wooden carts to transport things. Several old men, like Xing, who were interested in pottery, called on those who knew how to make pottery to find out which kind of clay was suitable for making pottery, and which was the best formula, and how to make quality pottery. When Shashwan returned to the tribe, many people in the tribe used potteryware. Potteryware was better than the stoneware, but some people hadn't got used to them yet. For example, Coffin broke potteryware, so Xing became irritated and went to punish him. Shashwan had been to the pottery kiln, and the ancestors of the Flaming Horns tribe had also left records on the making of pottery. But 1,000 years had seen many improvements in the making of pottery. In the ferocious beast mountain forest, there was a lot of clay suitable for making pottery. Xing and the others were happy about this every day, and stayed there with a piece of animal skins in their hands to record things. They often did so in person. Shashwan had made several potterywares for his family, and at the same time, he also tried to make some tiles and bricks that he could use to build a house. His hut had changed into a brick house, bigger than the one he had built on the other side of the river. Next to the house, he set up a shelter for Caesar. Chaka did not stay here to rest, but went to the nearby mountain to build his own shelter. Shashwan went there and saw that his shelter was on a high cliff. Chaka had changed an indentation on the cliff into a cave and lived there. The team had returned with livestock and seeds. These were given to the people who knew how to handle them. Among the wanderers of the Flaming Horns tribe from all parts, many were craftsmen. They could handle these better than the totem warriors. Old He and the other people who came from the grasslands were responsible for the raising of livestock and building pens. When Shashwan went there, he noticed that several goats and cows that had become weak were now much stronger. They were very strong now, Though sometimes they were scared by the roars of the beasts in the remote forest, they were bolder compared with those raised by the Lut tribe. They adapted to the environment after a period of time. Shashwan was asked to come out by Chuo in the early morning. Today he didn't go patrolling, later he would go out for hunting, but right now he was still free. "What do you think? I built it by myself." Chuo contentedly pointed to the newly built house. Chuo had intended to build a stone house, for his family had been living in a stone house on the other side of the river. After he saw Shashwan's brick house, he changed his mind. He visited Xing, had them make some bricks and tiles, and brought them back to build his own house. The moment he finished building his house, he asked Shashwan to come over. "It's great," Shashwan said after he looked at Chuo's house. The place where Shashwan lived now was not far from the houses of Chuo and the others. The distribution of houses in the tribe was similar to that of those houses where they had lived. People with higher status lived in the houses closer to the fire pit. Even though they no longer lived on a mountain, they still followed this rule. In Shashwan's family, no one had a high status, but everyone knew his contribution to the tribe. No one would oppose that his house was close to the fire pit. "Where is K?" Shashwan asked. Coffin acted together with Chuo, but he hadn't been seen recently. K's home was nearby. Shashwan looked around, but did not see him. "Oh, Chuo laughed. "He has been hatching an egg. Hatch an egg." Shashwan stopped his yawn in the middle and asked. Chuo told Shashwan what had happened when he had left. The tribe would settle here, but they needed a relatively safe environment. The totem warriors in the tribe were responsible for getting rid of all dangerous creatures. They had to remove all lethal plants, large beasts and ferocious beasts, etc. Therefore, in this period of time, they did not travel a long distance or plan the hunting routes. As they cleaned the area and expanded, they could hunt for prey. The birds of prey living in this area moved their nests, but they were still caught and cooked by the warriors. When we hunted those birds of prey, we also found some eggs and brought them back for cooking. Afterwards, K kept some eggs and intended to hatch them to raise some birds. K had tried to raise some beasts before, but in the end he threw them in the pot. Now he was hatching eggs. No one knew what would be the result. Shashwan became interested. "Let's go and have a look." "He has been hatching the eggs for so long. Have the birds come out yet or not?" Shashwan went to K's house. "Not yet, probably." Chuo recently had been busy with his own affairs. He had to finish his tasks in the tribe and spent the rest of his time building his house. When Shashwan arrived, K was coming out and saw Shashwan. K looked happy and said, "I was just coming to get you." "Shashwan, what did Chaka eat when he had just hatched?" Listening to the twitter in the room, Shashwan and Chuo also knew what had happened. "I fed it some beast meat." "You should feed them some beast meat now, rather than ferocious beast meat. Tear the meat into smaller pieces." "Yes, like this." Shashwan saw K tear the beast meat into strips to feed those birds. He seldom showed so much patience. "Why do you want to raise them?" Shashwan asked. These birds of prey were aggressive and vicious. They didn't have much flesh, so he shouldn't be planning to raise them for food. If he wanted food, he should buy some large birds from the Lut tribe. Could it be that he wanted to raise them and have the shaman brand them? "They run fast," K said as he fed them. "I figured that if they can be tamed, then we can ride them in the forest." While chasing the people of the Wanshi tribe, K noticed that the birds ran very fast in the forest. Though they were not as big as mice crane, which was a ferocious beast. However, it was undeniable that these birds could move swiftly in the forest. If they could be tamed, they could be more helpful in the forest than horses. "What will you do if you fail?" Shashwan asked. "I will eat them," K said. It was common for the people of the Flaming Horns tribe to cook those they raised. After giving some advice to K, Shashwan left, as he had to go hunting. Old K had polished the hunting tools, and Shashwan took them with him. Winter was coming. Every day, some of them went hunting. They went out in the morning, and returned with prey before the sunset, because it was a short trip and they moved fast enough. Shashwan met up with Mai and Lenga and went deep into the forest. Because of the burning of the fire seed, some ferocious beasts had left the area of the tribe, but not all of them had gone. Shashwan could see some marks left on the trees while walking. If totem warriors had gotten rid of the dangerous animals in the area, they would leave a mark on the surrounding trees. One group after another took turns and more marks were left across the ferocious beast mountain forest. There's still a long way to the border that the shaman drew, Mai said as he looked at the last mark. In the plan made by the shaman and the leaders, the Flaming Horns tribe had a large site. In fact, it was not really a border they had drawn based on their personal opinion. Instead, they had drawn according to the map left by their ancestors. The Flaming Horns tribe hadn't settled in the ferocious beast mountain forest. 1,000 years had seen geographic changes and the disappearance of the old Flaming Horns tribe. The ferocious beast mountain forest had expanded like this. If the Flaming Horns tribe wanted to keep the old border, they had to remove all beasts and ferocious beasts gradually to occupy as large a site as before. If we're going to grow some plants, we need a larger place. To keep a large number of animals, we also need more space, Shashwan said. That's true. The others nodded and became excited as they began imagining that picture. Okay, from now on, be careful, Mai said. Here, no one had ever cleaned up the dangerous creatures. Everyone needed to be careful about the poisonous and extremely threatening plants, and the hidden beasts and ferocious beasts. They had plenty of hunting experience, and when Mai reminded them, they became alert immediately and stopped talking and laughing. While others feared the ferocious beast mountain forest, the people of the Flaming Horns tribe did not feel it was hard to live here. Moreover, they even felt it was familiar. The environment here was very similar to that of their old hunting grounds. They soon adapted themselves to the environment of the ferocious beast mountain forest. They loved it very much, although it was indeed very dangerous. Next day, the warriors began hunting. They struck the stone tools in their hands to kill their prey one by one. When it was close to the sunset, they left a mark on a surrounding tree. Another group of warriors would come here and finish the work. One day after another, they kept doing this until the snow fell in the winter. Chapter 261, The Ancestors' Bone Ornament. It snowed heavily in winter, which might be bad news for some wanderers. But for the people who came from the other side of the river, they thought it was warmer here. The snow was falling. Standing at a high place, you could see that everything on the mountain was covered with white snow. Although it was snowing here, the snow pile would not get taller than a person. It didn't snow heavily every day and sometimes the weather was fine. Of course, deep in the forest, the weather was worse. Shashwan and the warriors of the hunting team were carrying some prey as they stepped on the snow on their return to the tribe. In the place they had walked past, there were some reclaimed fields. It was said that they could sow some of the seeds they brought back, even in the autumn and winter, because those plants could survive in cold weather. The field was not large, but they could try growing some plants here. Around there, you could see some people walking back and forth, busy doing things. In addition to these fields, there was a livestock pen which was newly built. The old one was too small. Since the tribe expanded, they had more space to build a bigger pen. When the wanderers came here, those who knew each other lived in one house, similar to a dormitory. At that time, the space was limited, but now their site expanded by nearly 2/3. They had much more space. Nowadays, some wanderers moved out of the dormitories and built their own houses in the designated areas. Although the tribe allowed the wanderers to live here, they could not get the food for free. It meant that if they needed food, they had to work for it. Not only the wanderers from other tribes, but also those from the Flaming Horns tribe had to do so. The shaman and the chief did not allow anyone to get things without working. The wanderers that could survive must have some skills, though they hadn't been trained. Thanks to these skills, they could exchange for a lot of food from the tribe. The wanderers from other tribes lived at the border of the ferocious beast mountain forest. From there they could come out of the forest easily, but until now no one had left. Although they lived in the ferocious beast mountain forest, after removing the dangers, this place was not much different from the other forests. Moreover, close to the ferocious beast mountain forest, it was guarded every day by warriors, in case some ferocious beasts broke in. Even though there had been some beasts, They were small and weak, so they were captured and cooked quickly. The warriors patrolled on the outer border and the core area of the tribe. In the core area lived the shaman, the chief, and other vital people, but most importantly, there was the fire pit. The orphans were taken care of by those in the tribe as they could not catch any fish here, and there was still enough food supply. Now the tribe paid more attention to them. They were educated by others and received training together. Anyone who behaved well would get rewards. Everyone was motivated. Everything was going well. Having arrived home with his prey, Shashwan was preparing to process the prey. Told said at once, "I will process the prey. You go to visit the shaman." The shaman sent someone to call you to his place. What happened? Is it about the ritual ceremony after the end of winter? If it was only about the ritual dance, the shaman should just have someone tell him about it. It was unnecessary for the shaman to ask him to come there. Shashwan set out confused. Without delay, he put down the prey and went to find the shaman. The place where the shaman lived was very close to the fire pit, and his house was similar to that of the ancestors, which was painted on the shaman volumes left by the ancestors. When Shashwan got there, only the shaman was in the stone house. He was writing something. The shaman did not stop writing and Shashwan did not bother him. He just found a stool to sit down on and took the earthenware kettle and the pottery cup on the table. He poured a cup of water to drink. The water was still warm. Someone came in to pour some warm water into the shaman's kettle at intervals. It was also the case when they lived on the other side of the river. About a quarter of an hour later, the shaman stopped writing, rolled up the animal skin volume, put it aside, and then looked up to Shashwan. "How was the winter hunting?" the shaman asked. "It was good, probably because we are not deep in the forest. The ferocious beasts we met are not strong. Even when it is snowing, we can still go out for hunting, but we get less prey. We've almost removed all the dangerous creatures on the border." Shashwan said. The border he mentioned was the junction between the Flaming Horns tribe and the ferocious beast mountain forest 1,000 years ago. Now the shaman and the chief had changed that into a border. The hunting warriors needed to reach there and remove all the dangerous creatures, only then would their task be completed. At the border, large stones engraved with words and totem patterns could be found, which had been left by the ancestors. The stones were broken to some degree, and some were buried in the earth. "Yes," the shaman said calmly and made a small nod. He had already learned about what Shashwan said. Right now he was just asking him casually. This was not the reason why he asked Shashwan to come here today. The shaman turned around and walked into another room. He took out a stone box with a respectful attitude, as if it was treasure in his hand. Shashwan saw it and sat with his back straight. He knew that the shaman only treated the things of the ancestors in such a way. However, why did the shaman take it out? After carefully placing the stone box on a low table, the shaman opened it and took out a bone ornament from it. There was also a faint ball in the middle of the bone ornament. Shashwan was familiar with this. When he had carried the ancestors on his back out of the cave where the king stone worm lived, he had seen one of the ancestors wearing such a bone ornament. Later the shaman also told him that the ancestor with the bone ornament was one of the elders in the tribe. "Do you remember this?" the shaman asked. "I remember," Shashwan said. He still remembered that this bone ornament was a treasure, for it could resist the attack of the king's stone worm. That was why the ancestors could stay intact in the cave. The shaman sighed, held the bone ornament in his hands and passed it to Shashwan. "This bone ornament, you keep it. You wear it at the ritual ceremony after the end of winter." Shashwan was surprised. "This is for me. What if I lose it?" The shaman's sad face twitched and looked at Shashwan without a facial expression. "If you remember, poker face shaman, angry shaman." "Never mind." Quickly taking the bone ornament, Shashwan asked again, "Why do you want me to wear it? Didn't you say only an elder can wear it?" "Yes." The shaman looked at Shashwan with mixed feelings. "If you can light it, you are an elder. This is left by the ancestors. It cannot be lit so easily." Shashwan said. He was not a fire seed. How could he light it? He thought he was too young to an elder in the tribe. "I am not sure." "Have a try," the shaman said. Since he brought it out, He did not intend to change his mind. The reason why he did so was that he just wanted to see if the bone ornament could be lit again. In fact, the shaman did not have much hope for this. After all, the fire seed was incomplete. But when he recalled that when Shashwan awakened, his situation was different. It was the kind of awakening that came from a complete fire seed. Because of his power of inheritance, the shaman decided to let him have a try. After all, Shashwan was recognized as the man blessed by the ancestors. Even if he could not light it, it could protect Shashwan. Chapter 262, Remains of the Shaman. Holding the bone ornament, Shashwan recalled the situation of that time. He remembered that it was the ball in the middle of the bone ornament that was the cause and asked, "Do you know what this ball is, and where did the ancestors get it?" In the cave where the king stoneworm lived, it was dark, but with his special vision, Shashwan saw the light of the ball. The light shone the surroundings, but with the ordinary vision, it did not emit any light. This was a very special thing. Treasure? It is indeed a very precious thing. The shaman showed admiration in his eyes and stared at the ball. He said, "Long, long ago, when the tribe was first established and the first shaman passed away, the chief put him in the fire pit. He saw that the first shaman did not disappear like the others. He left behind 6 balls. Is this one of them?" Shashwan was surprised and asked. The shaman nodded and said, "Later, the 6 balls were given to those who made great contributions to the tribe. They were called elders. Except the shaman and the chief, they had the highest status in the tribe and worked as the assistants of the shaman and the chief. The 6 balls were also the light of the tribe. Even in a place far away from the fire pit, they could bring light to the people of the tribe. Unfortunately, after the fire seed was divided, the 6 balls became dim." Shashwan paused and felt that the bone ornament in his hand was heavy. What should he do if he lost it? The shaman would kill him. If it was only something precious, the shaman might forgive him. But this was a thing left by the first shaman, and in this world he could not find a 7th one. Shashwan was in a daze for a moment. 6 balls? Shashwan asked with doubt. "The 6 balls left by the first shaman are kept by you?" He had just seen only 3 bone ornaments in the box which the shaman took out. The shaman shook his head and said with regret and pity, "The other 3 disappeared with the missing half of the fire seed. So far I have not been able to sense where the other half of the fire seed is." The shaman could not feel it, and no one knew where it was. The fire seed was still divided. No one knew when they would find the missing half. In regards to the ritual ceremony at the end of winter, the shaman told him some things about it and then let him leave. This time, as expected, Shashwan was still one of the dancers of the ritual dance. After Shashwan left, the shaman sat in the original place and looked at the other 2 dim balls in the stone box. He had been in deep thought for a long time and he eventually let out a sigh. He had always thought about how to cross the river to return to the old land and what to do after the return. However, after coming back, the shaman felt very stressed as he became more aware of the situation here. Was the Flaming Horns tribe strong enough? Yes, it had been strong. However, it is weaker than the several large tribes in the central region nowadays. If it confronted with the Wanshi tribe next to it, maybe it would suffer a crushing defeat. He didn't want this to happen. After the winter ritual ceremony, the Wanderers would awaken their power. They had to become stronger. Only by doing so could they settle here. Shashwan left the shaman and then went back. At this time, it was dark. Few people were active. Fortunately, there were no night swallows. There were also less annoying nocturnal insects, partly because of the fire seed. After the fire seed was connected with the fire veins, it had a bigger impact on other creatures. Chaka now did not like to stay close to the fire pit. He came here every day once to bring some prey to Oldk and then left in a hurry. After dinner, Shashwan had planned to go see the birds of prey that grazed. Finally, he did not go out because of the bone ornament that the shaman had given to him. He sat in the room to study it. The most important part of the ornament was the ball. Shashwan touched the surface of the dim ball. It was not as cold as the other things in the winter. Instead, it was warm. Such a thing was left after the cremation of the first shaman. If the shaman hadn't told him, Shashwan would not have known where it came from. Shashwan knew it was special, but he did not discover anything. In the end he fell asleep and had a dream. In his dream, a figure in the shape of a person, made of flames, appeared and it slowly became clearer. In the beginning it was only in a distant place, but gradually the burning person walked straight towards him. The person was getting closer and closer, but he could not see person's facial features and knew nothing about the age and the gender. He was only sure that it was a person that was wrapped in flames. That flaming person opened his arms and did what the shaman did while summoning the fire seed near the fire pit. It seemed that he was saying something, but Shashwan could not hear what he said. A shaman, Shashwan, like a bystander, watched the flame person's movements. As Shashwan was immersed in such a strange dream, the bone ornament he wore flashed in the dark night and then became dim again. Nothing had changed. Shashwan woke up the next day. He still remembered his dream clearly. He looked at the bone ornament on his neck and thought whether it was a dream in which the ancestor wanted to tell him something. Maybe nothing had happened and it was just only a common dream, right? He shook his head. He saw the ball was still as dim as yesterday and no longer thought about it. Today he didn't go hunting, but they needed to patrol. The people of the Wanshi tribe occasionally came to the border to get some information secretly before winter. When the winter came, few of them came here but they still had to be alert. Moreover, there were now a lot of wanderers in the tribe. No one knew whether they were loyal enough. Most of the wanderers who followed them all the way here should be loyal and know what kind of life they wanted. Even though they didn't have any good skills, as long as they were willing to learn they would not starve. Shashwan, how many people can awaken in this ritual ceremony? Lang asked. It depends, maybe 1 or 2,000 people can. Shashwan replied. Only 1 or 2,000? Not only Langa, but the other patrolling warriors were also doubtful. In the tribe, there had been more than 1,500 totem warriors with or without the ability to hunt. There were women and some children who were not old enough to be awakened. In the future, most of the children would also awaken and become totem warriors. After their return to the old land, including all the wanderers, there were 6 or 7,000 people, which surprised them. If most of them could awaken, they would help a lot. But that was in fact not the case. Many of the families of wanderers who were considered to be members of the tribe were not people of the Flaming Horns tribe, such as Yan Shao's wife and Old He's wife. Some women were members of the Flaming Horns tribe, while their husbands were not. All of them were registered as members of the Flaming Horns tribe. Therefore, strictly speaking, among the 6 or 7,000 people, 30% to 50% should be reduced. It was estimated that only 1 or 2,000 people could awaken. Listening to Shashwan's analysis, the patrolling warriors were upset. However, among these wanderers, nearly half of them are female. Shashwan said. Most of the wanderers who had left on the way were men and few women left. Perhaps the women knew that even if the tribe was facing a crisis, it was the best choice for them. Hearing him mention this, Langa and the others, who had been upset, suddenly cheered up. This was indeed a good thing. In the past, there had been few women, so the shamans had been strict on the other side of the river. Therefore, in each generation there were a lot of bachelors, and because of the low birth rate and the harsh environment, the tribe had only a small population over the past years. Now, among these wanderers who came back, there were many women, so the birth rate will rise. In Yan Shao's family, 2 babies were born. Thanks to the improved living conditions, his wife was in good health and got pregnant again. Langa and others felt he was enviable. It was believed that the tribe would soon develop. Shashwan was thinking about it. He suddenly stopped walking and turned to look in one direction. That was the place where the wanderers lived. What's wrong? Langa and the others noticed him stop and asked. Shashwan said with doubt and vigilance, I always felt that someone was looking at me. Nothing strange. You are so popular, maybe a girl is into you. Langa said after a pause. Shashwan's face looked serious. The others no longer joked about it. He had experienced a lot in the hunting, and since he had such an intuition, there must be something wrong. Not all of those wanderers were trustworthy. Go and have a look? Lang asked. No, Shashwan stopped him. You had better pay more attention to that place. If he guessed correctly, Among the wanderers, some others were hiding. Shashwan was just looking at a place where the wanderers lived. It was a plain hut. I had asked you to be careful and you did not. In the hut, an honest-looking young man was sitting on a wooden stool with his legs crossed. However, at this time, his face showed ridicule. Close to the window of the hut, a beautiful and slender woman shrank against the wall. She had planned to observe his reaction, but unexpectedly the young man looked towards her. Fortunately, she moved quickly to dodge his sight and he didn't see her. The woman was looking for something, but at this moment, she heard the sounds of footsteps outside the hut. Those were not the footsteps of a totem warrior, which made them feel relieved. They came for me. I have to go out to work, so you must be careful. In the next 2 days, you had better stay here, otherwise, we will be found out. When the man said this, his face no longer showed ridicule. He looked honest again, and even a little dumb. In the following days, each patrolling team would pay more attention to those wanderers. Nothing unusual happened over the past days. The winter soon passed. The most significant ritual ceremony in the tribe's history was to be held. Chapter 263, Lighting Up. The snow on the ground began to melt quickly, and some places were no longer covered by the white snow. In the Flaming Horns tribe, everyone was happy. Some were pleased by their success of planting the seeds, and some were glad because they found their lifelong partners. More importantly, they were looking forward to the forthcoming ritual ceremony. Strength and sense of belonging were what the wanderers had been eager for. For wanderers, becoming totem warriors had just been a distant dream, but now their dream was going to come true. In the early morning, the warriors of the Flaming Horns tribe went to draw totem patterns on the faces of the wanderers who would become members of the tribe. This was a necessary part of the ceremony. Even those who would not awaken or who were the wanderers of other tribes had to be painted with the totem patterns on their faces. The latter would also be considered as the members of the tribe, for they were the relatives of tribe members. Only those who attended the ritual ceremony became the members of the Flaming Horns tribe. Those who were not from the Flaming Horns tribe could not awaken, but could gain some strength from the fire seed. Even though they would not be as strong as the totem warriors, they could at least get stronger. That was still better. It was the first time for the wanderers in taking part in such a ceremony. They were so excited that they wanted to touch the paintings on their faces, but they didn't dare to do so, for fear that they would ruin them. It seemed that the paintings were a living creature. Everyone had spent the whole winter preparing for the ceremony. Even when it was the coldest, they were not willing to wear animal skin coats, in order to preserve their coats. The ritual coats were also very important, which could show their good manner. Shashwan was asked to go out in the early morning. This year he was told many details about the ceremony, like the ritual dancers, by the shaman and the chief. In this way, they could make sure that everything would go on well. When the shaman came out, he glanced at Shashwan a few times. Though he did not show his emotions on the face, he felt disappointed. It hadn't changed. The ball on the bone ornament was as dim as before. As Shashwan looked at the shaman, he knew what he was thinking. He felt helpless, for he had no way to make it light up. Maybe it was because the first shaman looked down on him. After all, according to the records about the elders in the animal skin rolls, an elder must be at least as old as Ta. On the contrast, he was too young. Many people had seen the bone ornament, especially those from the hunting teams, like Shashwan. They remembered the ornaments and weapons of the ancestors when they had brought their ancestors back to the tribe. Therefore, when many saw the bone ornament worn by Shashwan, they were surprised. They did not know the meaning of this bone ornament. Even if they knew, they would still believe in every decision made by the shaman and the chief. Moreover, Shashwan really made great contributions to the tribe. It was twilight. All the people of the Flaming Horns tribe, including the original members, the wanderers and the relatives of wanderers, were brought to the place where the ceremony would be held. People who may awaken were also brought around the fire pit. There were a large number of people and they surrounded the fire pit in several circles. The youngest were the closest to the fire pit. The younger you were, the closer you got to it. Of course, those who made a significant contribution to the tribe, like those good at planting, raising animals and making pottery, could make a step forward to move closer to the fire pit. Many people were aware that the closer they got to the fire pit, the more power they may get. However, no one opposed this arrangement. Even though some disliked it, they had to follow it. Last time they had lit the fire seed, and today, it was the first ritual ceremony. In the fire pit, a flame the size of a palm rose immediately. The first flame of the 3 flames of the fire pit, soaring flame, appeared. As the soaring flame appeared, the totem also appeared. With the appearance of the totem patterns also appeared on each totem warrior's body. They were devoutly looking at the fire pit. Flames were rising above the fire pit, higher than usual. It seemed that they would cover everything around. The 2 horns totem was even much bigger than usual. Everything in the surrounding area looked as red as fire. The shaman was standing near the fire pit. He raised his arms, faced the fire pit, and read the spell which no one understood but felt excited about. As the shaman was saying the spell, the tribal music resounded, which was created by bones, stones, and animal skin drums. The rhythm was fast and sometimes slow. The ritual dancers wearing horns began to dance to the music around the fire pit. The second flame, flying flame, much denser than previous years. Part of the flames spread out of the fire pit and extended in the air. They didn't land. 6 hot lines extended from the fire pit. Shashwan concentrated on dancing, but suddenly he felt something strange. The totem in his mind was moving very violently, and the shell which wrapped the totem up became bright. This was unusual. In order to find out what happened, Shashwan glanced at his bone ornament while dancing. What he saw almost shocked him a lot and he almost forgot how to dance. The bone ornament was bright. The ball left by the first shaman after his death was lit up. In the beginning, the ball seemed to reflect the light of the fire, but gradually, its stem surface began to become noticeably bright. In addition, the ball emitted a light as bright as the flames. Shashwan paid attention to the ball and at the same time he danced to the music. He ignored the others. The people who were looking at the fire pit were shocked, especially those who had witnessed Shashwan's awakening. If they could speak out at this moment, they would certainly shout out to Shashwan, "You are on fire." The ritual dancers were surrounding the fire pit as planned. One of them was suddenly lighting up. It was very obvious. The shaman and the chief did not say anything because he kept dancing happily. The others pretended that they didn't see it. The shaman had noticed that something unusual had happened to Shashwan. Different from the others who saw his flames, he noticed Shashwan's bone ornament at the first sight. The shaman's hand shook and he could not wait to see if it was the ball that was lit up, or just reflecting the flames of the fire pit. However, the ceremony was going on and he couldn't stop dancing. He tried hard to control himself. The shaman continued to say the spell, but the wrinkles on his face were trembling because of his excitement. Was it lit up? Yes. Even though we haven't found the other half of the fire seed, the ancestors did not abandon us. This was what the shaman thought. He had planned to keep calm and host the ceremony. However, with the disappearance of the second flame, the third flame, spreading flame began to spread from the sea of flames in the fire pit. A figure gradually emerged at the edge of the fire pit, where Shashwan was standing. The huge figure gradually became clearer, like a giant rising in the sea of flames. He lowered his head to look at the people of the Flaming Horns tribe who were kowtowing on the ground. No one could see his face, for he was a person wrapped in flames, exactly like the one in Shashwan's dream. Because of the sudden appearance of the giant, the shaman was in a daze for a while. The people dancing around the fire pit could not help but stop. They knew that they should continue dancing. However, when they saw this giant, they could not help but stop and look over there in a daze. Shashwan also raised his head to look to the giant in front of him. Not only the people next to the fire pit, but also those unawakened wanderers far from it could clearly see the giant standing by the fire pit. What is that? Who is it? The shaman came up with a possible answer, but he was not sure. After all, no information about it had been recorded by the ancestors. It was certain that such a situation didn't mean a threat to the Flaming Horns tribe. On the contrary, It could protect the tribe better. The third flame extended far and out. It had extended to the border of those gone by years. No one paid any attention to whether the flame reached the border and/or how far it was from the border. Everyone focused on the giant beside the fire pit. He was also raising his arms, like the shaman, but he made no sound. When the third flame gradually retreated, the surrounding light faded. The giant standing up disappeared gradually, and finally returned to the fire pit with the flames. Everything was as usual. Chapter 264, The Young Elder. After the third flame disappeared, the ritual ceremony should normally be over, but it was different tonight. Even the new warriors that had just awakened did not have time to rejoice about their new life when the giant appeared. Although the giant had already disappeared from the fire pit when the flames retreated, they remained astonished. Besides the appearance, the giant even made them feel like worshipping it. The shaman sighed deeply, looked at Hao in his eyes, and then both looked towards Shashwan. The eyes of the shaman and the chief were filled with joy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hao shouted in a deep voice on the venue to attract the attention of all the people who were still immersed in that feeling. "I am the chief of the Flaming Horns tribe," called Hao. "In accordance with the will of the ancestors, I accept Zhuan as an elder," Hao said solemnly. After the chief, the shaman also said, "I am the shaman of the Flaming Horns tribe. In accordance with the will of the ancestors, I accept Zhuan as an elder." All the people hadn't become focused yet. Hearing the chief's and the shaman's words, they were suddenly stunned. An elder? Shashwan? They had heard that in other tribes there were elders, but those were the elites who had made countless contributions to the tribes and were strong and powerful. Most of them had competed to be the chief. In some tribes, after retiring, the chiefs would become the elders. However, they had never heard of such a young elder. The original members of the Flaming Horns tribe's only understanding of elders was from that person that was cremated back then, who used to be an elder. Since the shaman and the chief had announced it and they said they did so in accordance with the will of the ancestors, no one could disagree with the ancestors, right? Who dared to do that? Whomever dared to do that would suffer a lot. Shashwan handed the bone ornament to the shaman and an official title awarding ceremony was held. From now on, Shashwan was an elder of the Flaming Horns tribe, only below the shaman and the chief. The shaman was holding the shining bone ornament. He was so excited that his hands were trembling. He could feel the familiar bone ornament contain the power of the first shaman, the most powerful shaman. Meanwhile, he had consumed some energy in the ritual ceremony, but the amount of his energy was rapidly increasing. In the crowd, Old flushed from his emotions, and in his hollow eyes, tears were flowing. Unexpectedly, the child who had starved in the hole grew up and became an elder with such a high status today. The original members of the Flaming Horns tribe thought that in the whole tribe only the shaman and the chief had the absolute authority. Ta and Gui, the two team leaders, could not make everyone follow their words. But now, it seemed that another entity also had the absolute authority. According to the shaman and chief, an elder had a higher status than the team leaders. When the shaman and the chief made major decisions, the elder could participate in the discussion and even oppose the ideas. After the title awarding ceremony, the ritual ceremony finally ended. The new totem warriors were asked to go to a place to wait for the shaman, who would give them lessons. The others would go back together. From now on, they were not wanderers, but members of the Flaming Horns tribe. This time, there were less than 2,000 people who awakened, including the children who were old enough to awaken and the wanderers who came back. They were still counting the exact number. This was what Shashwan had expected. Shashwan had Old and Caesar go back first, for the chief looked for him to ask him something about the bone ornament. The people who had gathered around the fire pit gradually dispersed. The family members of those who awakened were so happy that they invited some good friends to celebrate. Those who failed to get the power, besides the young children, would be even less likely to get it in the future. A thin woman looked very depressed, and also reassured the others around her with a wry smile. She did not speak. Many did as her, and in the crowd she was not very noticeable. As she walked from the crowd step by step, her husband was waiting for her anxiously. Her husband was one of those wanderers from other tribes. So? When he saw his wife came to him, The man strode forward. The woman shook her head. The passers-by looked at the honest man who clumsily comforted his wife. They understood the reason. They comforted them, sighed, and left. The frustrated couple walked out of the venue, went back to their hut and shut the door. The man didn't look sad anymore but serious. With helplessness, he took out some herbs to smash them. He put them in a pot, added some water, started the fire, and cooked them. These herbs didn't smell strong. When they were cooked, there was a light smell of grass. If one did not pay attention or stayed away from the herbs, they could not smell it. That thin woman closed the windows and doors. Her face became pale at once. She couldn't stop herself. She spat out blood and looked exhausted. If she hadn't sat on the stool with the help of the wooden table, she would have probably fallen down. Damn it. The man looking at the clay jar said. The woman was panting and sitting on the stool next to the wooden table. She did not say anything, for she was afraid that she would spit out blood again if she did so. When the herbs were ready, she took the medicine and quietly rested for a while. Then she slowly said, "If the flame giant didn't appear so suddenly, I would not have suffered so much." They had planned to find out what treasure the Flaming Horns tribe had at the ritual ceremony. They usually showed the valuable items at the ritual ceremony. However, this time, they failed to implement their plan. They pretended to be a couple here. In their plan, the man was from another tribe and the woman came from the Flaming Horns tribe. At the ritual ceremony, they stood at different places, because the wanderers of the Flaming Horns tribe could stand close to the fire pit in order to awaken easily. Those from other tribes who wanted to join the Flaming Horns tribe needed to attend the accreditation ceremony. In this way they could be accepted by the fire seed or rejected by it. No one wanted to take that risk. The wanderers without faith would feel less repulsion by the fire seed. They hadn't taken part in such a ritual ceremony, nor were they wanderers without any faith. When the flames of the fire pit spread, she felt stabbing pain in her body. However, she endured such pains. They had many experiences, different from ordinary people. They could bear a lot. However, unexpectedly, a flame giant suddenly appeared. The repulsion of the fire seed became stronger at that time. That flame giant had a big impact on her. She had almost spat out blood at that time, but she held back. Fortunately, people around her only paid attention to the fire pit, so no one noticed her. Otherwise, her secret would have been revealed. She remembered that at that time she was like a weak beast facing a mighty monster and she couldn't resist it. At this time, she was still scared. However, thanks to their many experiences and their good disguising skill, they avoided being discovered by those around them. Chapter 265. Wait. The man cleaning up the dregs said, "I thought I could steal the bone ornament worn by that kid, but now it seems that I have to make a new plan." Although he was far away from the core area around Fire Seed, he still felt the repulsion and deterrence. Few people knew anything about that bone ornament. Those who had carried the ancestors back knew about it, while others had never observed it carefully. They didn't remember it clearly as a few years had passed. Shashwan usually wore the bone ornament hidden in his animal skin coat and never showed it. He had seen Shashwan's bone ornament in the winter. At that time, Shashwan went to the pens and had helped catch the birds of prey. When Shashwan was putting in effort to catch the birds, he saw the bone ornament that had come out. As a thief, he had sharp eyes. Even though the ball of the bone ornament was dull and seemed to be worthless, he had the intuition that it was precious, even more precious than a fire crystal. Shashwan was very alert, so he had never had a chance to steal it. Now, after the ritual ceremony of the Flaming Horns tribe, he had given up trying to steal it. It was left by the ancestors of the Flaming Horns tribe, and showed the status of an elder. It was precious, but that kind of force caused him to be vigilant of it. What do we do next? The woman had almost recovered and asked. Seize an opportunity and act. If we fail, retreat. The man said. In fact, he still wanted to go to the house of the shaman of the Flaming Horns tribe. Unfortunately, there was tight security around his house compared with that of the drumming tribe. Moreover, the young elder had sharp eyes. It was hard for him to succeed. After the ritual ceremony, the atmosphere in the Flaming Horns tribe became more lively and began prospering. Because of the awakened power, Those accepted as members of the tribe became energetic. Even the wanderers of other tribes who were not qualified to participate in the ritual ceremony of the Flaming Horns tribe could not help but begin to envy their power. Among them, some were smart and were thinking about how to build a close relationship with a member of the Flaming Horns tribe. If they succeeded, they could, in the name of relatives, join the tribe. The tribe was lively, but there was also turmoil. The winter had gone, and every creature in the forest began to get restless. After the people of the Flaming Horns tribe removed the dangerous creatures from their sight, the tribe reorganized the hunting teams, which took turns to go hunting and plan new hunting routes. At the same time, they strengthened the defense. The new totem warriors were quite active and fulfilled their duty. With their weapons, they wanted to walk around the border. As totem warriors, they felt excited at participating in such an affair. In the tribe, some fields had been reclaimed, and the livestock pens had also been expanded. Everything was going on well, but no one knew when a crisis would arise. They had to remain alert, especially towards the Wanshi tribe. Today, Shashwan went patrolling with others. Even though he became an elder, he could not be idle all day. Although an elder did not have the duty to participate in patrolling and hunting, Shashwan was also young. He was not too old to take part in it. In the beginning, the hunting and patrolling warriors were afraid of Shashwan and didn't dare to play a joke on him. However, gradually, they found Shashwan did not scold them for telling jokes and they felt free to do so. In terms of making decisions, they still followed Shashwan's words, and Shiwo usually talked with Ta jokingly, but they always listened to Ta when it came to their business. Shashwan and some warriors were patrolling in the tribe. They arrived at where the new members of the Flaming Horns tribe lived. After the ritual ceremony, the wanderers of the Flaming Horns tribe finally settled here. Shashwan glanced, laughed and said, "Such a big change." In the winter they had seen huts here, but now he could see that some families had changed the huts into houses made of stone and wood. Perhaps, soon they would build houses with bricks here. Yes, that is because there are more totem warriors, the other patrolling warriors said. The huts had changed into stone houses because those were stronger and looked grand. The construction of stone houses showed that there were totem warriors in the families. The wanderers who had endured a lot finally awakened, and now wanted to show off. Pay more attention to them, Shashwan said. This was the order of the chief and the shaman. They didn't exclude these newcomers from joining them, but quite a few of these new warriors were complacent. Anyone who broke the rules of the Flaming Horns tribe, even a totem warrior, would be punished by the shaman and the chief. As they were walking, they heard that something happened in the animal pens. The patrolling warriors were closer to the pen, so they went there to find out what happened. Shashwan also intended to go there. He stopped walking when he glanced and saw something. "Shashwan, why aren't you going there?" Langa saw Shashwan didn't keep up and asked. "You go ahead. I still have something to deal with. If something serious and urgent happens, whistle." "Okay," Langa said. The patrolling warriors hurried to the pens and soon Shashwan couldn't see them. He walked toward another direction. There was a couple who were walking to where the new warriors of the Flaming Horns tribe lived. The woman was carrying a rattan basket in her hand. Shashwan did not act because there were other people around. When Shashwan followed them, the two in the front walked faster and faster, and changed their direction. Around them, there were less people now. "The two over there, please wait," Shashwan said. The two in the front seemed to not have heard his words and continued moving forward. Shashwan didn't meet all of the new warriors of the Flaming Horns tribe, and he didn't know the two. Shashwan would be able to confirm whether the two were new warriors if he could get closer to them. Shashwan no longer said anything and rushed forward like an arrow to the two. The couple walking side by side suddenly separated, and the man turned to face Shashwan. In a moment, he became aggressive, like a sharp blade. He punched towards Shashwan. He didn't have any totem patterns on his body, but he was as powerful and fierce as a totem warrior. When Shashwan approached, his right hand looked like a claw and attacked Shashwan's shoulder even more fiercely. The hand was like a rock, strong and fierce. Whether the speed or power, They were above those of intermediate totem warriors. Even an intermediate totem warrior might not be able to resist such a violent attack, and weak shoulders would be smashed into pieces. A wanderer? No wanderers could be so fierce and powerful. At the same time, the man in the front was familiar to Shashwan. Shashwan was going to use his fist, but he instantly turned his palm, like a vine catching prey in the forest. He swiftly grabbed his wrist and attempted to throw him. Shashwan didn't want to just throw him away, but firmly grasped him to slam him towards the ground. When he tried to lift him, he stamped hard on the ground. Others, even if they managed to stand firm, they would also have to resist the power passed through ground. Not to mention the ground cracking, there was also a crater under his foot. After all, Shashwan attacked him with his strongest totem power. It was hard to resist such an attack. However, the man whose wrist was grasped by Shashwan didn't counter-stamp hard on the ground as Shashwan expected. Whoosh tilde. Like a gust of wind, the dust on the ground was blown away from his feet. He stepped on the ground lightly. Chapter 266. The person who has been beaten, transformed into a different figure. The moment Shashwan arrived, he could clearly see the incredible changes happening to that person. The tall man transformed into an obese person. At this time, Shashwan had underestimated the person in front of him. When they were fighting against each other, the petite woman who had retreated to the side stared at Shashwan with amazement. She knows that Shashwan is clever. When she detected Shashwan tailing behind them, they immediately changed their plans. They tried to avoid the patrol team, especially Shashwan's patrol team. How did this brat discover us? How are we supposed to get past them in the future? Shashwan also noticed the movements of the petite woman. Whatever happens, he was mentally prepared to fight the woman if she joins the fight. But she just stood there and watched the battle. When Shashwan looked back at his opponent, he was caught by surprise to see the man on the offensive and attacking him. Suddenly, the man moved and jumped back. His face was somewhat distorted. His bones haven't been restored to its original form. He was smiling at Shashwan and then started to laugh for some reason. It was weird and horrible. The man looks like he was about to speak, but he looked up at the sky. Someone is coming. Let's go, said the petite woman. She quickly ran away from the scene. The man who was fighting Shashwan also quickly left the scene, but they were both going in different directions. As soon as they left, 10 people came and chased after the 2 people. Shashwan could not catch up to the 2 people. After fighting with the man, he is now sure that the man he fought with was the one he met in the tribe last year. Perhaps he could have also stolen the things that belonged to the tribe. It didn't take long before the 10 people came back. From their expressions, Shashwan can see that they did not catch the 2 people. What happened? Asked Shashwan. They ran away. Gooey, he said. The white dragonfly in the sky also came back. It also failed to find the 2 people. Were the 2 people thieves? Seems like it, Shashwan answered. Shashwan asked around to see where those 2 thieves lived. Shashwan described the faces of the 2 thieves. It did not take long for Shashwan to find out where the 2 thieves lived. Is it here? Gooey, he kicked the door open. The people inside the room didn't understand what was happening, but they did know who Gooey he and Shashwan are. One is the tribe's boss and the other is the tribe's elder. Both of them has high status in the tribe. The people in the room did not dare to speak a word. Shashwan talked to Chuo and asked him to do something. Shashwan entered the room. Chuo told the customers that 2 couples had secretly left their rooms without paying. He asked if any of them knew the 2 couples. Shashwan listened to the information provided by the people around Chuo. From the information that Chuo has gathered, the 2 people were already in the tribe before winter. After looking around the house, they found nothing useful. Shashwan and Gooey he went to the leader and reported the matter. The thieves entered the tribe secretly. This made the leader felt angry and vigilant. Go to each tribe and re-register the people. You are responsible for this matter. Yes, last year there was a lot of negligence, and there was a lot of trouble. Now that something has happened, you need to clean up the mess. Not only do you need to re-register the people of Yanjiao tribe but also the tourists who live in the peripheries. You guys have to re-register and then check and recheck them every once in a while. The leader asked, Zhuan, how did you find them? Intuition, Shashwan said. He couldn't tell why. After seeing the 2 They felt a little bit suspicious. After following them, he felt more and more suspicious. "I will get more people to try and find these two thieves," said the leader. After leaving from the hustle and bustle, Shashwan walked with the patrols and walked through the residential area Yanjiao. He left the patrol team and planned to go over and see if he could find some clues. Similar to the other wooden houses, there was a wooden table that has been smashed and shattered in the room. There was a lot of wood residue on the ground. In the wooden house, the furnishings were simple. The wood on the wall was knocked over. Marks were left by the tools. The ground was also shaved. They probably did not find anything, and got so angry that the wooden bench was also crushed. Shashwan did not find anything suspicious. It really feels like those who have not yet have their totem power awaken. Nothing special here. There is something. Shashwan smelled carefully. Since he has seen lots of herbs with Wu, he can identify many of them. The subtle smell of here is more like grass, not bitter medical herbs. By the fire pit, there were some light green dregs. Shashwan picked some with his finger and lifted it under his nose. Were those two injured? Probably recently, too. Thinking of the ceremony a few days ago, Shashwan wondered if their injury was inflicted by the fire in the ceremony. Really? Are thieves these days so relentless? All that rejection and pain from the fire, just for some petty theft? How dedicated. He looked around, but nothing sketchy other than those dregs. Shashwan was about to leave, but he turned around after some brief thinking. He looked around again, but with his special ability, the entire place was shrouded in darkness. The wooden walls and stone-like objects lost their original color and turned gray. Though there was one exception. Shashwan's gaze was fixated at the base of a particular place along the walls. There a dim glow that stood out from the surroundings. Compared to the gray hue around it, it was very noticeable. After closing the door to the log cabin, Shashwan walked over to take a look at the dim light. It appears to be coming from the ground. Unable to see what was buried underneath, Shashwan took out a dagger and started digging. As he dug further, the light became brighter and finally, he was able to see the light-emitting item. It was a pouch made of animal hide with something inside. It was cylindrical and about a forearm's length. He opened the pouch and took out what was inside it. It was a wooden tube of some variety. It was not bamboo, but it was not a type of wood Shashwan had commonly seen before. This was slightly harder. There was a tightly stuffed stopper at the end of the wooden tube. There was the trace of a golden powder-like color near the stopper. What was this shiny gold material? Was it some kind of metal? To be hidden like this by those two people, could it be a stolen treasure from some other tribe? Filled with curiosity, Shashwan decided to pull out the stopper. Though it was just a stopper, he needed to apply quite a bit of strength in order to pull it out. An ordinary passerby would not have the strength to do so. In order to prevent the contents inside from spilling out, Shashwan kept the stopper faced up as he pulled with force. The abundantly packed gold powder dazzled as if it was placed under sunshine. Was it gold? No, it was not. In fact, it was not any sort of metal. Shashwan slightly weighed the tube in his hands and stirred up the contents a bit with the dagger. The golden powder was not as heavy as metal or stone. It was more akin to wood. A golden-colored wood? Unlike the dyed color, it was more like a natural gold. Looking around, Shashwan found a wooden plate and took it. After wiping the wooden plate clean, Shashwan poured out the gold powder into the wooden tube. He carefully pinched at the clipping within the gold powder. It appeared to be a portion of a leaf that had been shaped into a square-like shape. The cut marks could be seen on both ends, but they were not apparent along the borders and the leaf veins were still visible. The wooden tube gave Shashwan the impression that it was very archaic, but the leaf looked like it was freshly plucked with no signs of withering. Sniffing the leaf, he could smell a faint foliage scent. Though it was not pungent, one whiff of it would cause one's built-up fatigue to disperse. What was more fascinating to Shashwan was the design on the leaf. The lines were in a messy zigzag, so he could not tell what it was. Was it a letter? It did not seem like it. Shashwan delicately blew off the gold powder covering the leaf in order to get a clearer look. Looking on top of the dark green leaf, he noticed the golden letters formed by the powder were gradually fading out, so he stopped. The windows were tightly shut, but even if the wind were blowing in, it would not have scattered the powder that quickly. Moreover, the powder on the wooden plate beside him was fine, Only the golden powder letters on the leaf were rapidly disappearing. Shashwan wanted to bury the leaf in the gold powder again, thinking it would perhaps prevent the powder from dissipating. Before he could do so, his vision blacked out and he had lost consciousness. Chapter 267. After the couple escaped the Flaming Horn tribe, they originally thought, "We cannot afford to continue to stay around the people of the tribe. We'll just try to go around to the area of the Wanderers." However, unexpectedly, the people of the Flaming Horn tribe started a head count. "Let's just wait for another chance. There will always be people leaving, and that would be our chance." Yeah. The originally slender woman had blossomed quite a lot, and her facial features had also changed. So, if people were to find her, they wouldn't think of them as traitors immediately. While thinking about that, the woman yelled, "Where is the thing?" "What thing?" "The leaf of eternal youth," the woman said while gritting her teeth. This stunned the man, but he said nonchalantly, "It's fine. After the wind dies down, we'll go back and dig it up." "But what if someone else gets it first?" the worried woman said. "This is a treasure that they found while hiding their belongings, down in a hole." Nobody knew which tribe the dead person was from. However, looking at the bone structure, one can deduce that it is from a very strong warrior. The treasure was laying by the set of bones, which showed that the person seemed to have been dead for a long time, and the bamboos had already changed color. However, the leaf that it contains was still good as new. This was the leaf of eternal youth. According to rumors, once this leaf enters the soil, it will stay fresh for 10,000 years. That is a really long time. The scribes of the tribes use this to write stuff to pass on to later generations. However, the ones that are left are really rare nowadays, and almost no one had seen one before. Before, they were only rumors, but now since they were able to see the leaf, they knew it was more than rumors. However, even when they saw it, they were both shocked. They were extremely surprised to be able to find such a treasure. It may even be able to make them rich. Unfortunately for them though, they weren't able to read the ancient text inscribed on the leaf. Because of how curious they were, and as well as not feeling secure putting it outside, they kept it a secret. They brought it along with them during the excursions with the Flaming Horn tribe but made sure to keep it well concealed. When they entered the tribe, they shut themselves in a room to study secretly the leaf for a long time. They still couldn't find the secret behind the leaf though. Maybe only mages and magicians could decrypt these. Who wants to go dig these things? Even if they break the house down, they still won't be able to find it. Even if they did find it, would they even be able to understand what it means? "Yeah, I guess," the woman said while calming down tremendously. However, unknown to the pair, Shashwan has already found the items a long time ago. Unbeknownst to Shashwan, the gold powder on the freshly picked leaf disintegrated after he fainted. The leaf became dried up and turned yellow and proceeded to mix with the dirt on the ground. At this moment, Shashwan suddenly saw a sea of knowledge, and the shape on the leaf took the form of a weird 2D shape. What is the painting trying to depict here? Is it a totem? No, it can't be. He looked at the odd, moving drawing. It is almost as if it had life in it as it was squirming. Is it a bug? A snake? Something else? It didn't have eyes, nor did it have feet. It just is a simple line, but it is ceaselessly moving. What in the world is this? Shashwan doesn't really know much about this world, and his knowledge of the history is even more scarce. Everything he knows is from what others told him, and all of it was just pure rumors. He couldn't tell if it was true or not. He doesn't know what the leaf that was in his hand before he fainted meant, and he doesn't know what the gold powder is either. He is even more confused on what the moving lines were trying to tell him. While Shashwan was pondering behind the meaning of this, he noticed that within this weird shape, a faint pair of hands started to materialize. After this pair of hands appeared, the shape became much more realistic. This time, he could guess what it was. When he was learning traps with Lauk, TL, Loki, he also learned a few new ways to tie knots, and the pair of hands that he was seeing was tying knots with a rope. It was only tying knots. Is it really that mysterious? Shashwan didn't understand, but after looking at it for a while, he noticed something was going on. The knots that it was tying were not the ones used to set traps but instead are more like the ones to transmit a message. A very important, serious and powerful message. After a long time, Shashwan still couldn't see the hands tie any knot. It was just there twirling chaotically. Shashwan was staring at the pair of hands in his mind. However, in reality, he was inside the stone house of some sorcerers. The leader, 2 elders and some other people were all here. Their attention was totally directed at a person, lying down on some animal skin. Leader, what happened to Shashwan? Did he get ambushed by some people? Whispered quietly. The leader glared at him and said nothing, but he had an ugly expression. Not only in the tower, but in the house, nobody had a kind expression, especially Guihi. Guihi brings the people of the Flaming Horn tribe out and does head counts every day, and even searched the house of those 2 suspects. He didn't find anything abnormal, but just as he finished and wanted to leave, he heard that Shashwan was heading this way. When he didn't see much happening, he left. However, Guihi wanted to see if Shashwan went back to the house of the 2 traitors, so he headed back. Unexpectedly, when he entered, he saw Shashwan lying down on the ground. He was scared out of his wits. Shashwan was promoted as elder just a while ago, and if something were to happen to him, the sorcerer and the leader would go insane. Good thing is, Shashwan's breathing patterns were normal, yet he was not responding to his name being called. Guihi could only carry him to the sorcerer for help. Unfortunately, even when he brought him to the sorcerer, he still couldn't wake him up either. Guihi reported some details to the sorcerer and approached the holes with empty containers and sprinkled some of the gold powder onto it. The 2 elders started to suspect that maybe the 2 raiders had returned. Maybe they decided to dig up some stuff. But when Shashwan touched it, he fainted. However, upon closer investigation, the facts just didn't line up. Shashwan didn't even have any signs of injuries on his body, so he didn't get into a fight. Even more, if these 2 can knock out Shashwan so easily, why didn't they just kill him? They couldn't come up with any conclusive evidence, so everyone just stood in silence. The sorcerer touched some of the golden powder inside the empty container. When he touched it, his eyes started to sparkle. He is moving. Look, he moved. Guihi yelled in astonishment. Everyone gazed at Shashwan, who was lying on some animal skin. They saw that Shashwan's fingers were twitching. There was no pattern in the movement, however, it was clearly very fast. The originally jittering fingers started to move to a larger area, and the wrists were starting to move. It seemed like Shashwan was enduring something very exhausting because he was drenched in sweat. He didn't fight, nor did he do anything other than lie there. What was draining his energy? Everyone was astounded. Did he have a bad dream? Said quietly. Looking at this man's sweat-covered face, one could even assume that he was hunting some savage animal inside a dense forest. The sorcerer saw the movement of his hand and felt that what said was wrong. It seemed familiar. What is it? The sorcerer's pupils contracted violently and raised his hand and started waving. We must get everyone out of here. The 2 elders kicked everyone out and returned to look at Shashwan's situation. They also bolted the door shut so no one could enter. Guihi was reluctant to leave, but after getting a firm stare from one of the elders, he turned around and left. After confirming that everyone has left, and the door was firmly shut, the elders asked the sorcerer, "What do you think happened?" The sorcerer looked at Shashwan's hand movements and signed in vain. Judging by his movements, I can conclude that he is fighting with something, and it seems to be tying knots. Tying knots? He said confusedly. Chapter 268. When Shashwan opened his eyes, his vision was very blurry, only becoming clearer after a while. The face of the Wuan Shaoling appeared above him. "Ah, Zhuan, how are you?" Ao asked, sound worried. For Shashwan, it took quite some power to just sit up. Wu handed a cup of water to Shashwan to drink, which helped relieve a bit of his headache. "I'm okay," Shashwan answered weakly. "You don't look okay." Ao poured more water into the cup. Shashwan felt that he was recovering and proceeded with telling Ao what happened at the cabin. Ao was relieved when he heard that nothing bad happened to Shashwan. "Is that all?" Ao took the wooden plate and barrel with the gold dust. "Yes, what happened to the leaves?" Shashwan asked. Ao and Wu looked at each other and then shook their heads. I'll go and ask again. No, I'll go to the wooden cabin myself, said Ao. I'll go and see too. Shashwan stood up. I'll go too, Wu said. Once again, Shashwan came back to the wooden house. Shashwan pointed to the place where he had held the leaves before. Only, the leaves were gone. Has anyone else been in here? Ao asked. Shashwan shook his head. There shouldn't have been. Recently, the people around here have busy with the two thieves. How could they have came to this house? Wu walked around the house, then stayed in the place where Shashwan fainted, crouched, stretched out his arm and brushed on the ground. The leaves are dead, said Wu. Dead? When I took it out, the leaves looked fresh and green. Shashwan was amazed. But if Wu said that they were dead, then they really were dead. After going back to the stone house, Wu told Shashwan to stay behind. Do you know what your hand positions were in while you were unconscious? Asked Wu. I don't know. Shashwan shook his head. The leaf you were holding might be a leaf of eternal youth, said Wu. Is there really such thing as a leaf of eternal youth? Shashwan was doubtful. These are also powders from the tree of eternal youth. Wu didn't care whether Shashwan believed it or not, just continuing with his explanation. Reportedly, long ago, our ancestors used to inherit tools such as the leaves of the tree of eternal youth to record events of messages. An example is if I wanted to pass on some of my abilities to future generations, I would write it on the leaf. Such a heritage, even if written down, will be destroyed. They only exist once. When the recipient absorbs the leaf or message, others will not be able to read the text. Naturally, there will not be a second person to get that kind of inheritance. Do you mean that the message of the leaf of eternal youth is inside my head now? Shashwan asked. Yes. He glanced at what used to be the leaf. So, I inherited the message of that leaf? I don't know what it was. I only saw a pair of hands with a partially fastened rope that looked like an incomplete knot. Wu smoothed out his beard and pulled on it 2 times, still wondering what it was. How about you go to Guizi and ask her to teach you about the meanings of the ropes? Wu said. What do a few knots even represent? Shashwan asked. However, Shashwan was really interested in what the ropes represented. He wanted to understand what kind of information the leaves were trying to give him. The next day, Shashwan went to the medicine house. Wu already told Guizi about the situation. When Shashwan arrived, Guizi gave him a scroll. Shashwan untied the scroll and opened it. There were some pictures of ropes and knots, and next to it were text annotations. The scroll was still new, from the time of production. It had only been a few years. Thank you. When I need help, I will call you. Shashwan pulled out a rope and looked at it. These ropes were relatively smooth. The pictures in the scroll told Shashwan how to make the knot and what the knot represented. Sometimes, seemingly very similar knot had very different meanings. This was probably used to pass the hidden information. Shashwan thought all of them were very simple knots. Shashwan was able to make a sentence with the knots he made. Shashwan tried to remember the sequence of knots that were on the leaf. He tried to copy the knots in his memory, but couldn't make them look the same. One by one, he started tying knots that were impossible to untie. All of them tied in a chaotic way. When tying the knot, Shashwan thought to himself, am I not supposed to be the smart one? Why is it so hard to tie a simple knot? Why are my hands all tangled up with the knots? After Shashwan untangled the knots from his hand, he wiped the sweat out of his forehead. It was very tiring. He decided to stop because it was getting late, choosing to continue tomorrow. Shashwan didn't believe that he couldn't solve this simple knot. Chapter 269. After that day, Shashwan did not use the expensive ropes provided by guys. It was too wasteful. Instead, he practiced the knots on grass ropes. Although they were rough, it didn't hurt his hands after he tore it apart. Also, if the knot couldn't be undone, it could also be used as firewood. For 5 days, in addition to patrolling and hunting, Shashwan used the ropes to tie knots. As a result, many of the failed grass ropes were used as firewood. Lauk did not quite understand why Shashwan was so obsessed with playing with the grass rope, but since Shashwan insisted, he did not say anything. After failing again, Shashwan was somewhat discouraged. He slammed the grass ropes to the ground and threw them aside. before picking up the water-filled gourd and pouring a few mouthfuls down his throat. After taking a long break, Shashwan ran to Wu's stone house and said that he was having trouble tying the knot. "I just feel that I am not doing this right. My hand somehow gets tied into the knot every time." Wu was silent for a long while. Then he said, "If this is the case, it is better not to think about the knot, but to be free. Don't be obsessed with imitating the movements of the hands. You can try to make the knot your own way." Shashwan had thought about it too. It was in his own mind. Even though he couldn't figure it out, he would try it later. You should learn to empty your mind. It has been said that people who are empty-minded are actually very smart, because they can always do things that others can't do. Something akin to the flow mind method. Enlightenment of that inheritance is not something you can achieve overnight. "I know," Shashwan said. Wu nodded with satisfaction and prepared to say something, but Shashwan cut him off. "After 2 days, I plan to go to the forest and take a go on a trip. It may be a bit far, and it might take 3 to 5 days to come back. I've found a nice stone over there that I want to check it out." Wu's heart twitched. "By yourself?" After Shashwan said that he wanted to go out and that he wouldn't come back for 3 to 5 days, Wu seemed to be worried. If it was someone else, Wu wouldn't have cared, but it was Shashwan that was leaving. Wu was hesitant, but still nodded. "All right, you must be careful, don't make any rash decisions." Wu said. "I know, you can rest assured," Shashwan promised. 2 days later, Shashwan took the polished stoneware, some food, and left the tribe. After flying away from the tribe for a day, Shashwan walked directly between the forests. The guards usually searched the skies for suspicious birds. Shashwan did not want to be labeled as someone suspicious. The surrounding environment felt sinister. With many years of hunting experience, he had stronger instincts than most people. Shashwan could sense negative emotions that were directed towards him, and within a certain range, he could also detect danger. The forest was very wet and very foggy. Here, it seemed like even a small beast was dangerous. Shashwan walked into another forest. The tall, dense branches obstructed the line above, giving the whole place a rather gloomy atmosphere. Shashwan noticed a beast not far ahead. It hid behind the thick grass between the trees, staring at Shashwan with wild eyes. The beasts that Shashwan usually hunted would run away after seeing the hunting team because they knew that the hunters were going to kill them. However, in this strange forest, the beasts did not know human beings. They were wary of any strange things, and they thought of humans as prey. Not only would they not run away, but they would also attack. Accompanied by low howling, the figure that leapt from behind the grass declared the first strike. The low-lying beast violently attacked Shashwan, but Shashwan's blade cut deep into the beast's flesh. Blood came splashing out of the beast's body, which fell to the ground, lifeless. Shashwan took 10 steps backwards. Several small beasts came rushing out, not towards Shashwan, but to the body of the beast that had been cleaved in two, screaming for food. However, it wouldn't take long for the pungent smell of blood to spread out. There would soon be other beasts coming over, driving away the smaller beasts and claiming the corpses. Having flown and walked for an entire day, Shashwan looked at the sky. The sun was already hidden behind the mountains. He needed to find a place to rest. He fought a fierce beast with a pointed claw over a hole in the cliff, and drove the beast out of the cave. There were many animal bones in the cave, with a rotten smell, and many large and small bugs crawling up and down. Shashwan burned a torch and expelled the insects. As for the animal bones, they were all smashed. There were holes inside the bones. Shashwan took out of the animal skin and used the skin as a paper. He drew a picture of the surrounding environment. This time, in addition to looking for the stone, he would also map the place he passed into onto some animal skin so that his hunting team could explore this place. Shashwan extinguished the fire and took time to rest. When Shashwan woke up the next day, the sky outside was a bit gloomy. Standing in the hole and looking out, the forest below was covered in fog. "It seems to be raining," Shashwan said. Shashwan didn't like rain very much, so he planned to stay in the hole and wait until the weather is fine before going out. The little animal meat that was cooked yesterday was eaten for breakfast. The meat of the beast had become cold and hard. Shashwan didn't care. He ate while watching the sky outside. I don't know when this rain will calm down, Shashwan said to himself, going to the cave to get himself out of the rain. The wind here was very violent. Sitting in the hole, Shashwan saw the rope tied to the waist. He hadn't touched the rope for 2 days. He took out the rope, now that he didn't have anything to do. Having taken it out of the animal bag and cutting it with a knife, he started playing with it in his hands. He was planning to tie the rope according to how he remembered it from his dream. But when he thought of Wu, he paused. If I did what I was doing before, the result must be the same. I will get my hands tied up in the knot again, Shashwan thought. Sighing heavily, Shashwan closed his eyes and put aside the memories of the hands. The rope just moved around aimlessly in his hands. Gradually, Shashwan forgot about knots. He started thinking about when the rain would stop. It wasn't the rainy season yet. The sky was still gloomy and rainy. While his thoughts were wandering, Shashwan's hands seemed to move on its own. The rope around his hand was circling between his fingers. However, something was different. The way he knotted the rope was different. The feeling that Shashwan felt was not so chaotic. It seems to have a strong purpose. This time, Shashwan did not get distracted but was concentrated and paid attention to the knot movement on his hands. And Shashwan's hands are also unconsciously following the action, exactly the same as the action of the hands in his mind. When Shashwan broke away from that state, he opened his eyes and looked at his own hands. He was shocked to find that the rope on his hand had already got several knots on it instead of sticking his fingers. Was it successful, or was it still a failure? Shashwan speculated what the meaning of these ropes and knots were. Just now, what was he thinking when tying these ropes? Hunting? No. Number. Stone? Number. Rain? Yes, it was rain. At this point, Shashwan was getting excited. He needed to verify what these knots meant. Looking at the sky outside, Shashwan stood up, walked to the edge of the hole, took a deep breath, feeling the damp and cold water vapor in the air, clenching his fist, and reaching out, counting the time in his heart. 5. The fist was open and the little finger extended. 4. The ring finger extended. 3. The middle finger extended. 2. The index finger stood out. 1. The thumb is extended and his palm was now open. Snap! A soft sound of a liquid landed on his hand. The palm felt slightly cool. Then bird poop landed at the center of his palm. Shashwan was going to wipe the poop off his hand with something. Just as he was about to take back his hand, another drop of poop landed on his hands, followed by a second drop, a third drop, and a fourth drop. Dense water droplets landed on the floor. The woods under the mountain were blocked by trees. The dense raindrops hit the leaves of the trees and there was the sound of something coming from below. Chapter 270. It's raining. It's really raining. Compared with the time predicted by Shashwan, it was only a few seconds apart. Coincidence, or is it really the same as the result predicted by the knot? After using the rain to rinse off the bird poop, Shashwan walked back into the hole. He took out the straw rope in the animal skin bag and cut it again. Looking at the rain outside, he thought to himself, why not try it once more? Since it's already raining, why not predict when the rain would stop? Shashwan thought of his state when he made the knot. He was thinking about what he was thinking when he was tying the knot, then picking up the rope again, closing his eyes and letting go of other distracting thoughts. He thought about the time when the rain stopped. Finally, the knots appeared in Shashwan's mind. It was inconsistent with the previous one. Shashwan carefully observed the movements of the hands in his mind. In his own hands, there appeared a knot that was similar to the one he had in his mind. When Shashwan finished the knot, the feeling of fainting came back. There was a moment of darkness in his eyes, and his brain was hurting for a while. Shashwan looked at the new knot in his hand. Shashwan interpreted what the knot meant. The rain will stop before noon. Even without the sun, Shashwan could estimate the approximate time when the rain would stop. As a hunter, he could guess what time it would stop raining. Noon. Not too long from now. I merely have to wait and see. Shashwan put the knot next to him, munched on a piece of chili barbecue, and rested against the wall. He needed to restore his strength as soon as possible. When it was almost noon, it was drizzling outside, but it didn't stop raining. After going back into the cave, Shashwan looked outside. The thick clouds of the sky were dissipating. The sun was shining through the gaps between the clouds. The rain gradually decreased until it stopped completely. The sky and the dark clouds scattered. The sun was out. The first time is a coincidence, but is the same thing happening 2 times a coincidence? Shashwan believed that the leaf recorded different knots. So is it technically a weather book? Even when he was traveling, he had never heeded a weather book. He didn't expect he would get such a thing. He didn't know which one of the members of this tribe left this behind. There was no trace on the totem. After the rain, Chaka flew out and grabbed a not too big beast and came back and ate it with Shashwan. After eating, Chaka rested next to him in the cave. His physical strength had almost recovered. Looking at the remaining stropes in the animal skin bag, he contemplated about it and decided to cut it again with a stone knife. Not in a hurry to leave, Shashwan intended to try tying a knot once more. He planned to study more. He wanted to predict where the stone he needed to find is, but it wasn't so smooth the third time. He tied the knot, tried again, failure, tried again, it failed again. The stropes in the animal skin bags have almost been used, and Shashwan put down a mess in his hand, rested beside the wall. How can I fail? Was it just a coincidence the first 2 times? Chaka was next to him, watching Shashwan create one grass knot after another and then hit his head against the wall. It didn't completely understand Shashwan's thoughts. It just thought human beings were really fascinating animals. When his physical strength was restored again, he picked up a strop and tried again. When the knot was finished, he looked at the knot. It was successful. Shashwan felt a sigh of relief. Was it just because it was excessively confusing? The place he needed to go next was a place where he can find the stone. However, when Shashwan interpreted the meaning of the knot and compared it with the direction given by Chaka, he found the directions pointed in 2 different directions. To have a better understanding, Shashwan made a slight adjustment and tried again with a straw rope. The result was the same as before. Shashwan looked at the direction predicted by the knot, thought about what was more important. After a little thought, Shashwan made a decision. Hey, let's not go to the stone first, let's go there instead. Shashwan pointed to the opposite direction while talking to Chaka. The direction pointed by Shashwan was a place he has never visited, but it didn't matter. It was quite thrilling to go to a strange forest area. Because of the consumption of physical strength and time, Shashwan decided to start traveling tomorrow. Shashwan and Chaka, who regained their spirits the next morning, left the cave together and marched in the direction indicated by the knot. There was a river running through the forest. The river was a little green, and some animal activities were occasionally seen around. Shashwan didn't walk by the river. It was too risky. He was at least 20 to 30 meters away from the river. By the river, there were some things there, and Shashwan wanted to take a look. However, as he walked over, there was a whistling sound that cut through the air. Shashwan had been aware of his surroundings. After perceiving the movement, he shifted his body and dodged to the side. Snap! A water arrow came charging at that place where Shashwan was standing. Water arrow? Shashwan's eyelid rose. Where did the water arrow come from? Was it from a fish by the river? It didn't wait for Shashwan to think. A second shot was shot again from the river. Although it was water, it possessed fierce power, and the speed was extremely fast. The second water arrow missed Shashwan. The third and fourth water arrows were shot. From the river, there was an object that was holding something. Shashwan didn't have time to investigate. After he had avoided the water arrow, he left the river bank. The deeper you go into the forest, the more dangers there are. Even a small fish is a threat. Chapter 271. To go to the place indicated by the knot, Shashwan had to cross the river. Shashwan walked along the river for a while, but still couldn't find a place where he could directly cross over. While clutching Chaka's claws, Shashwan saw an animal near the river. The animal had long, sharp claws like a gibbon's claws. The animal was attracted by the shiny thing on the banks of the river. Suddenly, something from the river shot arrows at the animal on shore. However, The animal reacted quickly. It stopped its excavation and quickly began to dodge. Two of the arrows had missed. The fish in the water was a little anxious. The head once hidden under the water was now exposed, and some fan-shaped scales could be seen. 3 water arrows were fired simultaneously. The first 2 water arrows sealed off the retreat path of the animal on the shore. When the animal turned around, the third water arrow hit the animal in the chest. The animal on the shore was beaten, and there was a short pause. A sharp scream rang throughout the mountains. There was stillness. The only thing that was moving was the animal in the water. The fish's body, which was about 6 or 7 meters in length, looked big and heavy. It suddenly jumped out of the water and fell onto the river bank. The developed pectoral and pelvic fins acted like 4 legs. After it landed on the shore, it started to jump towards the animal. It opened its fangs and bit the animal. Shashwan could clearly hear the crisp crunch of the bone breaking. The animal's eyes were filled with fear and disbelief. The strange fish, still biting down on the struggling animal, shrunk its developed pectoral and pelvic fins, and rolled its rough cylindrical body off the bank and back into the river. The screams of horror disappeared instantly. Tranquility was once again restored to the river and its surroundings, with only a few bubbles and an inconspicuous blood floating up from within the river. This was the forest that the tribes were afraid of. The hidden dangers under the seemingly tranquil surface gave people a great sense of pressure. After crossing the river, he returned to the ground and continued to deal with all kinds of murderous animals in the mountains. On the other hand, Wu is counting the days that Shashwan has left him. It's been 6 days, and I don't know when Shashwan will come back. Whenever I think of Shashwan, I get a headache and I cannot feel relieved. Wu was worried. He walked into the house from outside. As he walked into the house, he saw people from the Lu tribe. What happened? Wu asked. Wu felt embarrassed after hearing himself say those words. He knew that the news could not have been about Shashwan. Wu was slightly relieved, but what he said was indeed serious. The people of the Lu tribe told them that there would be a special long-distance party coming. The party was comprised of people who were from the big tribes. These things required the attention of the tribes, and Wu did not have time to count the days that Shashwan was away. After 3 days of hard work, Shashwan finally arrived at the place indicated by the knot. Although Shashwan didn't know where to look for the stone, he was able to feel that there was something important here. Shashwan could feel that there was something in the mountain. While vigilantly observing his surroundings, Shashwan walked closer towards the mountain. He didn't know where he was, and he didn't know what he was looking for, but he knows that he will find something there. As he climbed the mountain, the trees got thinner. He feels that he is getting closer to something. At last, Shashwan came to a hole. Looking at the huge stone wall in front of him, Shashwan inserted the knife back into the leather sheath on his waist, took a deep breath, and pulled the stone wall outward. With a dull grating, the stone wall moved a little. Shashwan was close to the top of the mountain. Although there was no snow, the temperature was really low. However, when Shashwan went into the cave, it was really hot. The cave was dark and there was no fire. There was a weird force blocking the entrance. However, this weird force gave Shashwan a familiar feeling. Chaka hovered around in the sky, unwilling to come down. Shashwan didn't try to force him to come. After removing the stone wall, Shashwan went to find some dry wood, ignited a torch, and walked into the hole. He didn't know how long the hole had been there. Inside, just inside. After going into the hole, Shashwan saw several people. To be exact, it was the bodies of 6 dead people. At first, Shashwan thought the bodies were things that were blocking the path. After getting a proper look, he found 6 brown, bone-like corpses. Their hair was still there. Although the animal skin on their bodies was no longer bright and covered with a layer of dust, it was not as flexible as it used to be. It could easily be cut with a knife. The 6 people completely blocked Shashwan's way forward. The bodies had no eyes in their eye sockets, yet they seemed to be watching intently. They obviously had no expressions, but they inexplicably gave people a firm and resolute feeling. It seems that nothing could move them away. The closer he was to the bodies, the more he felt like being ripped apart by this mysterious force. Shashwan had to use the power of the totem to resist this force. However, the strange thing was that when Shashwan used the power of totem, there was no longer a strong resistance. The force no longer repelled him. Instead, it gave Shashwan a feeling of closeness. The weird force was gone. Are they people from the Flaming Horns tribe? If they really were people from the Flaming Horns tribe, then they must be my ancestors. According to the tradition of the tribes, people of the Flaming Horns tribe were required to worship their ancestors. Shashwan only felt a blood connection to the bodies in front of him, but the people from the Flaming Horns tribe would naturally worship them. Shashwan put the torch to the side and turned to the 6 people in front of him, and worshipped them. Boom! The 6 bodies fell to the ground. Looking at the fallen bodies, Shashwan was stunned. He wondered whether or not he had fallen down on his ancestors, but he realized he didn't fall down. Previously, these 6 people had blocked the way forward, but now they had fallen, leaving an aisle, not too wide, but just right for Shashwan. Picking up the torch and careful not to trample the ancestors, Shashwan continued inside. As he walked about 20 meters, Shashwan saw a person sitting on the ground, rather, a dry corpse similar to the 6 people in front. However, this corpse was more complete, except for a slight discoloration. Probably because due to his age, this person had more folds on his face. As for his attire, unlike a warrior, it was somewhat similar to a shaman. Regardless, when seeing one's ancestors, one must worship. Shashwan once again bowed. Then, he felt that the strange power from before had disappeared. The temperature inside the cave suddenly dropped. It was as if the torch was extinguished. Shashwan's line of sight passed over the person sitting on the ground. Behind this person, there were several wooden and stone boxes with a layer of dust accumulated on them. Chapter 272. Why did my ancestors place so many boxes here? This place is not just a day or 2 away from the tribe. If there were no dangerous creatures in the mountains, it would make more sense, but there are many dangerous creatures in the forest. Shashwan walked over to the boxes with the torch. The boxes were tied with straw ropes, probably to keep the lid from falling during transportation. However, after a closer look, it seems that the knots that tied the boxes together were more complicated than he first thought. The bundled straw ropes are tied into knots, the paint was applied, and the knot in the middle position was the symbol of the witch. As for the others, the straw ropes used are relatively ordinary, but it cannot be said that the things contained in these boxes were of no value. Whatever is transported here by the ancestors were certainly of some value. Shashwan intended to have a look at the boxes with rope knots that were different from the rest. However, he found that the knots were difficult to unravel and the ropes were much stronger. It was as if they hadn't been there for a long time. They were still as strong as the day they were tied. Cut them off? Burn them? Forget it. If the tribe knew that he was going to cut the ropes off, they would say that he was being disrespectful to the ancestors. Putting the few boxes with complicated knots aside, Shashwan turned to look at the boxes with more common bindings. Raising his hand, he intended to undo the knot on a different box, but by just slightly touching at the straw ropes tying the box had broken. The broken parts had turned to dust. This same occurrence happened to the rest of the rope tying the box. Perhaps due to the passage of time, the grass ropes binding them had eventually turned to dust, but due to it being undisturbed all this time, the image of the bindings had remained until he touched them. The front of the boxes was high in density and the ropes used were different. Now, these densities are low, and Shashwan looks at the contents of the box without pressure. Opening the box, Shashwan saw animal skins rolled neatly inside. Shashwan picked up a piece and looked at it. It recorded what happened to the Yanjiao tribe in that year, such as the number of harvests, disputes, and other miscellaneous information. He picked up another one. It held records various wars the Yanjiao tribe and other tribes had been a part of at the time. It included the names of several tribes that Shashwan was familiar with, such as the Kyanbian tribe, the Weiba tribe, etc. Several central tribes known to Shashwan were recorded on the animal skin. What made the Yanjiao tribe so hated by the others? However, Shashwan found his thoughts to be wrong. By looking at the other animal skins, it was not that they were hated, but that during the era it was a normal occurrence for wars between tribes to occur. According to the records on the animal skins, the tribes were not as peaceful as they were now. Perhaps for the tourists, the life outside is now very difficult, especially in the rest of the market. The long-distance teams of various tribes are killed every day, and then the pool fish. However, compared to the records on the skin rolls, they were nothing. At best, they were minor conflicts between distant teams from other tribes. The records on the animal skins, however, were of large-scale conflicts between tribes, full-scale wars. 3 days and 1 small fight, 10 days of a large-scale conflict. Dislike someone, hit them. Someone looked at you the wrong way, grab them. See something you like, grab again. Everything is based on strength. If you hit it and it's back, kill it. If you can take it, you can steal it. If you rob it, never give it up. Fight or die. It could be said that once upon a time the survival of a small tribe was extremely difficult. According to these records, many small tribes were destroyed in the conflicts. The middle was even more chaotic, because there were many big tribes. There were 2 wars in 2 days. Today you raided my team, tomorrow I'll kill your whole tribe. That mentality was extremely prominent from what Shashwan had already read. Even the 8 tribes that Shashwan had always thought to be good neighbors and close partners, used to be hated enemies of one another. It had reached the point that one couldn't claim that the bamboo of their tribe was their own, as it resided on the border of the another tribe. Even if there is a green onion that does not belong to his own tribe, the people who were not a part of the 8 will be plucked out of the ground. And all the small tribes that hadn't joined one of the big 8, as long as they were discovered, are either slaughtered or eaten. The weak tribes are not good, no problem. As long as people who are not a part of the 8 are unhappy, they would be happy. Some of the notes weren't so solemn and had a lot of bad tastes. The notes also contained many other tribal scandals, such as who was dug in the corner, who was a cuckold, who was squeezed by the brothers, the position of the next leader. The words were slightly exaggerated, revealing gossip and excitement. Not all shamans were just as serious as the current shaman of the Flaming Horns tribe. The hatred of one family could easily become the revenge of a tribe. For such an era, war is too easy a solution to not be used to solve problems. The Yanjiao's physique and their dominant strength made quite a few people bite their tongue, yet they wouldn't dare take revenge. Their impression on others were rude and arrogant. However, Shashwan could see from the words written on the animal skin the pride of the ancestor who had recorded these details. No matter what was recorded, this same pride could be felt embodied by these words. As one of the tribes which held immense power, albeit in their younger days, Yanjiao had the capital to be arrogant with such a rich history. It was hard to imagine that the chaotic environment of that era had now become much more peaceful, although it was still filled with brutal violence and mindless killing. Compared to what was recorded on the animal skins, it was a different time indeed. Why did the tribes which once hated one another, treating one another as enemies to be fought to the death, now live peacefully? However, when Shashwan followed the hunting team, he had also inquired this same thing. The answer he received was as enigmatic. For a long time, I don't know how long, at least in the past 200 or 300 years, there have been no big wars between the tribes. Instead, the Wanchai tribe would always harass those smaller tribes in the central parts of the country, yet no one in the tribes are really fighting each other like in the past. Speaking of the Wanchai tribe, returning to the present, Shashwan had only seen the name of the tribe on 2 animal skin rolls. The witch who had recorded these had also predicted that the tribe would disappear within 500 years. Yet the facts proved this was wrong. Instead, the tribe had become more arrogant than the Yanjiao tribe in the past few years. It had also become more violent and aggressive, becoming one of the central tribes in the process. Between the major tribes, abandoning the former suspicion, letting go of hatred, not talking about peaceful coexistence, at least it seems that there is a cooperative relationship that allows them to change like this. Shashwan only thought of one of the most likely answers. They have common enemies. This enemy makes them afraid. 1 or 2 tribes alone can't do it. Enemies that threaten Yanjiao tribe. Not that the Yanjiao tribe wasn't strong. It was indeed strong, but they were not so strong that they couldn't be threatened. There was another point that Shashwan found strange. There were no records of slave owners. During the time there were captives. These captives were dragged back to work for the tribes who had captured them. However, there were no records of slave owners on the animal skins. In addition to the information he found on these skins, Shashwan had opened several other boxes with time-worn straws and had learned a lot of information from them. They were not entirely of wars between the tribes but covered all aspects, such as records related to farming and animal husbandry. In addition to these, Shashwan had turned over several other boxes with unsound straws and learned a lot of information. The notes didn't only include information about war between tribes but covered all aspects, such as records related to farming and animal husbandry. The Yanjiao tribe of a millennium ago was mainly a tribe which relied on hunting for their food. After all, they were so close to the forest, it was only natural to use such a primary food source. Most of their food came directly from the forest. However, it was also planted. It was like the murals that Shashwan saw at the beginning. They were planting, breeding and harvesting. These records contained all of these and more. Maybe these were part of the records that the tribe's shamans held now. However, he believed that these records were definitely more detailed than those of the shamans. Thinking about it, when the ancestors of the Yanjiao tribe left their old tribal home, they had mainly tried to escape. There were not many records about planting and breeding that they could carry on their body. Maybe they didn't bring them when they left because the ancestors had left and they didn't expect to leave for so long. The records the shamans held may even have been written by those who left later than others. There were simply too many skins in the box. Shashwan didn't find it convenient holding his torch inside because he was worried that the torch would damage the animal skins. Losing the knowledge of the ancestors due to his own carelessness would undoubtedly cause the tribe to cast him out in exile, or even kill him for his disrespect. Shashwan didn't doubt the authenticity of these records. The records were all created by shamans. On some of the animal skins were records of important facts. There were also some seemingly meaningless words at the beginning. Actually, these words were the language of the shamans. Do you need something? It was recorded that if there was a contradiction within the tribe, the decision would be given to the fire in turn being given to the totem. These seemingly meaningless words were actually a more solemn tone of speech used by the shamans to indicate that these were decided by everyone or by sacrifice, without any falsification. In addition to farming, fishing, hunting, animal husbandry, crafts, planetarium, architecture, medicine, war, politics and daily life, although many of the records were vague in these regards and not detailed, it could be seen from these that the tribe was not proficient in them at the time. For example, there are many records of the sky and handwork, which could only be considered immature, but there are so many aspects to the record that it still shocked Shashwan at the sheer amount. What's important to the Yanjiao tribe? The fire crystal, a variety of spar coins that act as property, or other precious stones? No. In fact, all had to be left behind. The more he read, the more important it was for the shaman of the tribe to know of his discovery. Among the tribe, the first thing they need to know is their own members, their origins, totems, etc. Secondly, they need to know the customary rules, important weddings and mournings, past leaders and deliberations. However, the big things would be production, war, sacrifice, etc. Undoubtedly, these are the contents that the shamans need to record and pass on to the future generations. These contents, popularly speaking, are what people call history. In the values of the shamans, the longer the history of the tribe, the longer the tribe exists, the more powerful the tribe is. As for why the history of Yanjiao was preserved here, perhaps it was not taken away in the past and was simply forgotten. It was brought here to be hidden. After all, few tribes dared to directly rush into the fierce Beast Mountain forest. It was simply too good a place to hide such valuable records. The people in the cave were long dead. The only thing left is the power that Shashwan had felt before. It was a devastating force to invaders. But for this cave it was like a guardian that had remained for thousands of years, silently waiting, guarding the history of Yanjiao and waiting for the future generations to return and find this cache of knowledge. However, one of Xiao Xuan's regrets is that there were no detailed records of the type of egg surrounding the fire in his mind in the things he had seen before. Perhaps such things were sealed in the boxes which couldn't be opened by him. Forget it, wait until the time comes to bring them back and the shaman will open them. As long as they were not contents which were secret and couldn't be seen, the shaman should allow him to read the rest contents of the records. Chapter 273. Can these things, in the box, be eaten as a meal? But these are extremely precious spiritual food for the tribes, and even the witches who are willing to starve to death will not throw them away. After careful consideration, Shashwan decided to leave these for the time being. When he returned home, he would call some people to come over and bring back the ancestor's body and antiquities, which are important to the tribe. There were too many things here, each one very precious too. Shashwan couldn't guarantee that these things could be all brought back. The weird power that existed in the cave has disappeared, and may not appear again. Its mission to guard this palace has been completed. In order to prevent the other creatures from destroying the ancestral body and those precious antiquities, Shashwan has set up some traps at the hole and went to the forest to find a lot of insect-proof plants. For these insect-repellent plants, Shashwan even fought with a giant bear. His arm bones were almost broken. The giant bear was much bigger than the two he had seen in the old place. Sure enough, the deeper he went into the forest, the stronger the beast. After dealing with the things inside the cave, Shashwan left and went to the direction that the knot had told him. His original goal was to find the stone, but he didn't expect to find so much treasure on his way. More than half of the stones found in the plaque are embedded in the stone wall, which is slightly different from the surrounding wall. There are various animals' marks and other markings on the surrounding stone walls, such as scratches, scars, etc. But this stone is rare. Good, very good. It took Shashwan some time to dig up the stone. The rock was very hard and was estimated to be nearly 2 meters high and 1 meter wide. Shashwan tried to dig it out, but the more he dug, the harder the stone was. The stone was heavier than the average stone, but with the strength of the Yanjiao people, Shashwan can carry the stone back home. Because he had to break the stone wall, he consumed a lot of strength. He had to retain enough physical strength to deal with all kinds of possible raids around him. Hence, Shashwan didn't have time to study the knots. He felt uncomfortable holding a heavy stone for the first few days, but he gradually got used to it. Sometimes he used this stone as a shield to block the attack of the beasts. After some time, he got used to the weight of the stone. When Shashwan returned to the tribe, it was 29 days after he left the tribe. Shashwan did not expect that he would leave for so long. He said that this trip was a matter of 3 to 5 days, but he never thought it would take nearly 30 days. Chaka flew down from the air and yelled at Shashwan. There are outsiders in the tribe? Shashwan wondered. Could it be the Wanshai tribe? After making a gesture, Chaka continued to pay attention to the situation in the air. Shashwan, after a little rest, picked up the stone that had just been laid down, and his other hand grasped the dead prey. Go to the tribe. The prey is a python, nearly 20 meters long. Shashwan found it when he woke up to find food in the morning. He was almost killed by the snake. It took some effort and time to get the snake. He thought that he should be able to return to the tribe before dark. He didn't throw the python away and dragged it back by the snake's tail. There are many snakes in this forest. There are a lot of them in the forest. Shashwan has seen snakes that were more than 3 or 40 meters, but those, Shashwan have always avoided them. When he came to the border, he met the soldiers who were standing there. Ajuan, you have come back. A warrior looked at Shashwan and dragged him as he talked. All right, how is the tribe now? Has anyone come? Shashwan asked. Oh, you have been away for a long time, that's why you don't know. The soldier thought of something, his voice was slightly depressed, and said, there are some people who heard that people of the central tribe are here. The people who have used to hunted have not gone out. No wonder, so that's why I haven't met anyone on my way back. It turns out that no one went out hunting. Shashwan said. I might have to ask the witch about the situation in the tribe. Shashwan hurried back to his tribe. Now that the sun is setting, he has to hurry back, so he can catch up with dinner. The tribe seemed to change a little. Since he left, the leaves of the tree became denser, and there were some farmland not far away. The seedlings in the field had grown taller. Because of the stone he was carrying, Shashwan did not go directly to crowded areas, and took the small roads. At this time, many people who came out to work have already returned to home. Therefore, there are not many people who Shashwan passed. Walking and walking, Shashwan heard someone talking in front of him. His voice was very strange. Oh, so this is the Yanjiao tribe. Xanzu also said that they are a powerful tribe, but I don't think so. That is before I heard those rumors. I thought that all of them were like monsters. When I really saw those people, I was very disappointed. A soft female voice said, there is nothing special about these people. What about their strength? Can you kill someone with a stone? The man couldn't help but laugh. Others also thought that this was very funny, and then laughed. However, he soon discovered that everyone's laughter stopped and the atmosphere was a bit strange. He heard the sound of someone close behind him, but he didn't care. Even if he was heard by the Yanjiao tribe, it was no big deal. He is not afraid. The man turned around. The setting sun fell in the obliquely forward position, and he could not see who the person was, but he looked like a monster. Chapter 274, The Foreigner. When Shashwan came back home carrying a snake tail and a stone, Old was cooking the broth, and he was complaining about Caesar outside the window while cooking. When he saw Shashwan coming back, Old couldn't care for anything else. He cast aside the housework and helped Shashwan take the snake. This snake is quite big. Where did you hunt it? Old looked at the snake thrown at the door, went in and fetched out the tool, going to chop it. Just near the tribe. I dragged it back directly after killing it. This stone is the one that Chaka found, isn't it? Shashwan loosed up his shoulders. Carrying the stone for too long, his shoulders hurt. Old tinkered with the snake with a small stone knife and nodded. It's very good. It's worth a special hunting. Well, you'd better visit the shaman. I will handle this snake. All right, I happen to have something to say to him. Wait, I almost forgot. Don't go to the stone house of the fire pit. The shaman is not there. Both he and the leader are in the big house, talking to people from central tribes, and they haven't come back yet. You just look for him in the big house. Shashwan looked in the direction of Old pointed. A relatively atmospheric stone house had been built on the border of the core area. There was no other house around it, so it was very conspicuous. It is the shaman, who knows someone is coming, had it done. These days he and the leader are there to talk to the foreigner. Old explained. Well, then I will go there and have a look. On the ground, a stone road was paved, so even if it was raining, people couldn't step on the mud. All this was not there before Shashwan left. There were many warriors around the big stone house, most of them from the Flaming Horn tribe and some external tribe warriors. The warriors of external tribes were not all from the same tribe. For that, even those with poor eyesight could find it. They came from at least 3 different tribes because the style of their clothing is so different. The clothing of each tribe was related to the totems and customs of that tribe. For example, people of the Ming tribe liked to wear green, some were in light green, some were in dark green, whose clothing material was similar to linen, and they all wore jade. From the jade, Shashwan could figure that these people were intermediate totem warriors at least. People of the 8 Limbs tribe, their clothes were silky, which was the characteristics of their tribe. Some of the warriors also had crawling spiders of various sizes and kinds. Another tribe had feathers in their heads. Their makeup was similar to the person who had stood in Shashwan's way just now. Their faces were also painted colorful, which made it hard for people to see their original appearance. The Feather tribe. When Shashwan observed these people, they did not care Shashwan walking towards them, except 2 men whom Shashwan had seen before. Both Zhu and Kus looked at Shashwan. They were deeply expressed by Shashwan, especially when they saw Shashwan fighting with 4 warriors. In retrospect, they still felt a little scared. As for the other Flaming Horn tribe warriors who guarded outside, They smiled unconsciously after seeing Shashwan. "Come to look for the shaman?" asked one soldier. "Yes, you can ask them whether I can get in," said Shashwan. One warrior, a guard of the shaman, was familiar with Shashwan. He didn't think the shaman would prevent Shashwan from entering the room. However, because the situation was a little complicated, it was better to ask for permission. Shortly after the man entered the room, he came out and told Shashwan to enter directly. Seeing that Shashwan was walking in, a few people of other tribes had some issues with Shashwan. Inside were some important figures. How could Shashwan, a small figure, enter the room? "Who was that guy? Why could he enter the room?" asked someone. "He is Shashwan," replied Kus. That person who was also about to say something stunned, turning around and looking at Kus and Zu. "Is he that Shashwan?" Before the return of the Flaming Horn tribe, these four characters Flaming Horn, Shashwan had already been known to some people, but when they looked for him later, they couldn't find Shashwan until the Flaming Horn tribe appeared. Several warriors of the Flaming Horn tribes looked at the opposite people with sarcasm and said, "Why could he enter the room?" "Because he is the elder of our tribe, the only one elder. His status is just next to the shaman and the leader. Could he not enter the room?" The Flaming Horned warriors had long been unsatisfied to these arrogant people of other tribes. Now, they even looked down on the elder, Shashwan. "If they said one more word about that, we dared to fight with them." Seeing the trend went wrong, a senior warrior pulled the people in front of him and said, "All right, we are not to quarrel here. Be careful, our team leaders would be angry." Shashwan didn't know people outside had begun to argue and almost had a fight. After Shashwan entered, he saw four people of other tribes, 3 sitting and 1 standing behind them. Among the 3 people who sat, Shashwan knew one of them, senior totem warrior Huang Yi of the Ming tribe, with the 3/4 jade ring. Huang Yi looked at Shashwan carefully. When he first met Shashwan, he did not pay much attention to him. Huang Yi only thought that Shashwan was an insignificant figure of a small tribe until Kus told him things about the Flaming Horn tribe. For the eyes of the 4 people, Shashwan did not care, and went straight towards them. Seeing Shashwan, the shaman, whose face had no expression before, smiled. He waved at Shashwan and gestured to Gui He, who was standing behind him, to move a stool. Here, except for 2 people seated, Shaman and Chief Ao, Gui He and Ta were standing. However, after Shashwan came over, he became the 3rd person from the Flaming Horn tribe who had the right to sit. Upon seeing it, the 3 people sitting across the table became stunned at the same time. People of the Flaming Horn tribe who could sit here were definitely very prominent in the tribe. Even the 2 team leader level senior totem warriors could not sit down, but the young man dared to sit still, and the other few did not have any objection. Obviously, Shashwan's status was even above the 2 team leaders. How old was him? He was not even the senior totem warrior. "I'm the elder of the Flaming Horn tribe, Shashwan," said Shashwan. To their surprise, as the only person who was not a senior totem warrior in the house, Shashwan has nothing to fear. He behaved naturally even when being surrounded by the senior totem warriors. Huang Yi was very confused about the word elder, but it was not the time to ask questions, and he may not be able to get an answer even though he asked. "Meng Wood, Huang Yi," said Huang Yi. "Weiba Valley," said the person next to Huang Yi. The man looked at the age of Huang Yi, but he had a smiley face which was not as serious as Huang Yi. "The Feather Tribe, Guzi," said the 3rd person. Because there were too many paints on his face, Shashwan couldn't figure his original appearance. "I just came back from the mountain forest and I'm very sorry to bother you," said Shashwan. However, he showed no regret on his face. Huang Yi was about to satirize. The shaman said first with a faint smile, "As the elder of the tribe, you are qualified to know what is being discussed." "Oh, what are you talking about?" asked Shashwan. The shaman simply explained what they had just discussed. 2 things. The first one, they suggested that the Flaming Horn tribe should not fight with the Wanshi tribe, and all three people present agreed with that. They also represented the three tribes here. The second thing was that a special traveling team would be formed in the middle each year. Most people of the team were the young from various tribes. This year, the Flaming Horn tribe was added, and they come over to ask about the candidates. Chapter 275. Not feeling good. The shaman and Shashwan continued to talk and ignored the three people opposite. Feeling funny, Ao didn't interrupt their conversation, but just listened to Shashwan talking to the shaman, and then looked at the three changing faces opposite with interest. Being so arrogant, who do you think you are? The hatred between our tribe and the Wanshi tribe has nothing to do with other tribes. Why do they not allow us to fight? Asked Shashwan. The shaman sighed. They said we would have trouble. How much trouble? Asked Shashwan again. The shaman sighed again. Very much. What if we just fight? Said Shashwan. This time, not waiting for the shaman to talk, Huang Yi finally couldn't help but speak. I suggest that you don't fight the Wanshi tribe. It's good for you. If the Flaming Horn tribe really wants to fight the Wanshi tribe, it depends on you. We are just reminding you. We Mangwood tribe is not willing to take care of these things. Said Huang Yi, being so angry that he was about to say some curse words. The people of the Flaming Horn tribe were as stubborn and ignorant as everyone said. Is that because of the slave's master? Asked Shashwan suddenly. The anger that Huang Yi just burst out seemed to be directly eliminated by a big fan. Thinking that the Flaming Horn tribe only knew to solve the problem with brute force, Huang Yi did not expect that Shashwan would say these words. Cayugu of the Eight Limbs tribe and Guzi of the Feather tribe were also greatly surprised by Shashwan's words. Not only these three, but the shaman, the chief, and the two team leaders were shocked. They really didn't know this. Although it was very uncomfortable for other tribes to intervene in their affairs, they knew that there was definitely a reason. However, they did not expect that Shashwan would suddenly say such a thing. They, the slave's master, are supporting the Wanshi tribe? Asked Shashwan again. There was silence in the house. Even Huang Yi, who was about to say some curse words, got serious and didn't say anything. Okay, I see. Shashwan nodded. Let's talk about the second thing. What's this special traveling team? Not reacting to the sudden turn of Shashwan, Huang Yi and the other two people looked at Shashwan. What did he mean by saying okay, I see? Then what? Do you agree to not fight for the time being? Give a message. Why change the topic so quickly? Huang Yi didn't want to speak. He actually had a lot to say. He wanted to educate this arrogant guy, but he couldn't say it. Cayugu, who had a smiley face, said, the reason we organize such a traveling team is to improve communication between these young people. After all, it's not the chaotic era of vendettas. To understand each other more would be beneficial for all of us. Moreover, it's about the slave's master that Shashwan mentioned. In fact, most people in the tribe have very limited understanding of the slave's master. The reason to form such a traveling team is also to evaluate the security threat from the slave's master. Shashwan only believed 30% of what Cayugu said, but he could make sure one thing, that these central tribes had allied to look out for the slave's master. Except for Shishu, Shashwan had never met others in the slave's master. However, those big central tribes were fearful of the power of the slave's master. There must have a deep-seated reason. I'm in, said Shashwan. Cayugu glanced at Shashwan, a light flashing in his slender eyes. This is not a rush. Not everyone can join the traveling team. If one wants to join, his strength must be recognized by other team members. Decades ago, the Flaming Horn tribe was really very strong. They couldn't raise an objection to the point after they knew the history of Flaming Horn tribe. But today, after decades, was the Flaming Horn tribe still as powerful as they were before? Seeing the current state of the Flaming Horn tribe, they doubted that the present Flaming Horn tribe had regressed while other tribes were progressing. How could they trust the ability of the Flaming Horn tribe? This time, the reason why they came here was just to feed their curiosity for the records of ancestors. But they were disappointed by the present Flaming Horn tribe. One more thing I have to remind you first, this traveling team would suffer a great number of casualties every time it explored. Nearly half of the team, said Chugu. When mentioning this, Kayugu, Huang Yi and Guzi were all with heavy hearts because of the great loss for their tribes. More than half of the team were killed, rather than injured. The force which was almost established by central tribes should have such a high death rate, which reflected how difficult the traveling was. The shamans and Dao's expression changed. They would rather not join the traveling team, nor do they want Shashwan to be in trouble. The shaman was about to say something when he heard a rumble. The sound was so clear in the quiet room that everyone sitting there could hear it, if they were not deaf. Well, you must be hungry. How about stop here today and continue to talk about it tomorrow? Said Shashwan. The three people looked at each other and nodded. All right, then we will continue the talk tomorrow. Ao stood up and said they needed to have a serious talk about it. Besides, it was getting late. Ao asked Ta to take Hung Yi and others to the resting place, while he went to the stone house of the shaman, together with the shaman and Shashwan. Shashwan asked Ao for a piece of dried meat first to comfort his belly for the time being. When they entered the stone house of the shaman, Shashwan didn't remove their doubts on the slave's master but told them that he had found their ancestors and history in the forest. Then, shaman and Dao left everything behind, neither the Wanshi tribe nor the traveling team, let alone the slave's master. For them, to find their ancestors and Flaming Horn's history was the first thing. There was nothing more important than it. That night, Chief Ao summoned the 2 team leaders and the 10 hunter group leaders to discuss the action. On the hunting warrior list, 50 people were chosen, and they will be given words by their leaders that all of them had 1 day to prepare the necessary, and the day after tomorrow they would follow Shashwan going deep into the forest to bring back the ancestor's body and the precious history. The next day, the 3 including Huang Yi met the shaman, the leader and the young elders of the Flaming Horn tribe again to continue what they had not finished yesterday. However, soon the 3 of them found that the leader of the Flaming Horn tribe was always absent-minded, and shaman seemed to place his mind elsewhere. Only Shashwan was talking to them about the traveling team and the slave's master. By noon, everything had been going well. As for the Flaming Horn tribe, Shashwan agreed to join, and others would take more time to consider. Anyway, the time for the traveling team has not yet arrived. That was the meaning of shaman and the leader. The outcome was a foregone conclusion since they had made the final decision. As for that the one received the recognition could join the traveling team, Shashwan felt quite confident that what he needed to do was to find someone who had been in the team to have a hand-in-hand fight, because the team would have to leave for the forest. So it must be done today. But which one should he fight with? Looking at the place where the foreign tribes were arranged for, Shashwan scanned his eyes back and forth. When Shashwan selected his target, the 3 of Huang Yi was also discussing. The people at the Flaming Horn tribe today are somewhat weird, said Huang Yi. There must be something we don't know. Could it be that they are still not reconciled to their defeat? Do they want to set about attacking the Wanshi tribe right now? Said Phase of the Feather tribe. No, it's impossible. Kayugu thought a little and said to Guzi, what did your bird find? Speaking of the bird Guzi took, although the team leader of the Flaming Horn tribe also had a ferocious beast-level white falcon, it alone might not be able to stop all enemies, so they carried not just the 2 on the bright side, another 2 were hiding in the dark side. Guzi pulled out a palm-long bone flute and blew it. However, after blowing for a long time, only the 2 on the bright side appeared. Their feathers were messy, which seemed that they had fought with the white falcon of the Flaming Horn tribe. But another 2 they were very concerned about were still unseen. Huang Yi suddenly said, do you still remember that the Flaming Horn tribe actually has a giant mountain eagle? It is said that the mountain eagle easily defeated a mountain eagle of the Hua tribe. Guzi, not feeling good. In the meantime, not far from the border of the Flaming Horn tribe, at the peak of another mountain, with its one paw, Chaka was clawing a bird struggling on the ground, and the other paw stepped on it. Are you going to scream? I will step on you since you continue. When Chaka stepped on the bird till it couldn't scream anymore, not far from it, the other fainted one, whose feathers were pulled out a lot, lying still, at its last gasp.